There she is. One minute. Okay. Okay. I think we've got the people we need and we can kind of kick this thing off. So we're streaming, right? So we're ready to go. Well, this is the Hideout Utah Town Council regular meeting and public hearing on an unusual night, Wednesday night, November 8th. This date and time change was date change was made to accommodate the fact that our people get to participate in the Veterans Day holiday on Thursday here because we don't normally work Friday. So calling the meeting to order and we'll do a roll call. Ralph Severini is here in the room. I am. Bob Nailberg.
I am here.
Thank you. Chris Byer.
Here.
Thank you. Carol Hazelton.
Here.
Thank you. And Sherry Jacobs.
Here.
Thank you. Appreciate it. This meeting is a mixed media, mixed physical location and Zoom meeting, where we've got some people in the council meeting room as well. For those of you in the meeting room, if you need to have a side conversation, please step outside to do that because this mic picks up everything and it's disturbing for the folks that are trying to listen in another through Zoom or YouTube or whatever. The other thing I guess I want to mention is the election ballots have been mailed out. If you have not received yours, please, I guess, contact Alicia for advice or the county, because in theory, they've all been mailed out. So you should have them by now. I know I've received mine. But have you received yours? I did, yeah. Okay. So that yesterday? Okay.
You want to mention our ballot box?
Oh, we have a ballot box, actually 2 ballot boxes here at the town hall. One is accessible from outside the town hall. It's a drive-up drop box. It is under surveillance, so that it is so we can see what's going on. So you don't have to worry about people tampering with it. And we also have one inside for when we're open during business hours. We're going to move on to the approval of council minutes. The first one is May 11, 2023, which was 6 months ago or so. I read them and think that they're well represent what went on, but I'll open up for council for comments or questions.
Mayor, I will make a comment. I was working yesterday and today and last night, and I did not get a chance to read the minutes of either May 11th or October 12th. So I am going to have to abstain.
Okay, thank you, Carol. Hopefully at least 3 others will be ready to comment or approve. And you can trust your fellow council people. They've gotten probably everything but the punctuation right. Chris, Sherry, Bob, any comments on the May 11th? Ralph, any comments on the May 11th?
Negative from
No
me.
comments.
Okay. I think I'll wait to the end and we'll do a motion for both that way. I'm doing it twice. So let's talk about the October 12th minutes, that's last month. should be fresher in everyone's mind. Again, I read them, felt that they did a good job representing what was discussed at the meeting. Any comments from council?
No comments.
Nothing on my end. Okay. There's
I don't
no-
have any comments either.
Thank you, Chris. And it sounds like there's no comments, so once again, Alicia, well done. And we're getting better and better, so appreciate it very much. I need a motion to approve the minutes of May 11th and October 12th, 2023. So moved. Thank you, Well. I need a second.
I'll second.
Thank you, Sherry. Carol is abstaining.
Could
Chris?
I make one comment here?
Sure.
I know that, Mary, you sent something out about it, but I'd just like to go on record as saying that when we get minutes and we get information just the day before our meeting, and those of us that are working, it's sometimes very difficult to try to put everything, to read everything and feel comfortable with it. And this is a request that we try to get the information earlier.
I agree completely. In the case of the minutes, I think Alicia did send them out, at least the May ones, fairly early. They've been out for a couple of weeks, I think, in the May one.
Okay,
yes.
I'm really sorry I didn't get them, but I have been traveling, so.
Anyway, don't worry, Carol. We'll, as you saw from my note today,
Right.
I've had, if we don't have what we need by the Thursday before the town council meeting, it's not going on the agenda. You know?
Yeah, I just want to say the same thing. I completely support what Carol just said. It's very difficult, people, I know everyone is busy. The town staff is very accommodating. They work very hard. I know that. I just from the council perspective, most of us, all of us, we do this. It's not our primary job. It's something that we do because we want to do it. We love it. But like Carol mentioned, we just need more time because we've got other obligations. Some of us work. People have, we have our other lives to fit this into.
Yeah.
So.
Well, Chris, as you could tell from my note, I spent some time with Alicia on this already, and that's why I reinforced that. And I'm going to be the bad guy. So if it's not in, it's not happening.
Mayor, we'd love to hold you to that because, this is not the first time we've had this conversation. I really think he's probably done it 10 times. So
yeah,
can we start doing this like now? I mean, the deadlines are there for a reason.
We are doing it now, Chris. That's what my letter said. Okay. If it's not in here the week before the 14th, which is the 7th of December, it's not going on the agenda. It's that simple. And unless we have to do it for some emergency / legal reason that there's no choice. Otherwise, it's not going on there.
Okay, thank you, Mayor. We appreciate you owning this. I don't want to blame Alicia. I don't blame Alicia at all.
No,
I just want to I'm very happy that you would own this and thank you from all of us.
Yes, and I thank you too, Mayor.
I'm tired of it. We keep trying to do better and we don't. And so now it's really simple. I'm the bad guy. I love that role. Okay. Did we ever get through the vote? No. So.
Sorry.
Okay, Chris, how do you vote on the minutes?
Yes.
Thank you. Sherry?
Yes.
Thank you. Ralph? Yes. And Bob?
Yes.
Thank you. Minutes are approved. Thanks, Alicia. Okay, next item is follow-up. So from the minutes, are there anything in there that you wanted to talk about, any of the council members wanted to talk about to get an update on?
Well, I saw a couple in here on the second set of minutes. And it had to do one with, item for signage, I think that was referenced on page 4. So I don't know if we've done any follow-up on that.
We have, and we continue to follow up on that. We had a conversation with engineering and Public Works today to think about how we can encourage our contractors and residents and their contractors to be more concerned about these things. And we're revisiting fee schedule on these particular items, and it will sting a whole lot more if these guys do not correct their deficiencies. So, and the signage, I know, like, I met with Kathleen on that several weeks ago. We've got new signs ordered and so forth, so that's good. We should have a vast improvement there already, although we still have some people that are not compliant. We're working on it.
And there was one on, doing a study on the speeding.
Yeah.
Did we get further ahead?
Yeah, we've made some progress on that. I'll talk about that. Alicia, I was supposed to tell you from my 3 o'clock meeting, but you were prepping for this. I want to add a topic to the December meeting. We're going to have a presentation on traffic and speed from a third-party consultant that we're using on this to talk about it, so the council can hear all the potential options. I mean, there's a lot of things we can do, but there's also a lot of data that says some of the things we want to do don't make sense. For example, what we found, what the data says, if you put in 5 stop signs, all it means is that people will stop. Either they'll run them or they'll stop, and then they'll speed like crazy to get to the next stop sign, which doesn't solve the problem. So anyway, these guys have ideas around how we're gonna get the traffic flow measured, and we'll be seeing that in the December meeting.
That'd be great to hear.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was supposed to tell you that after my conversation with Dan and Tim today, and I forgot to do that. So thanks for the reminder. Anything else on follow-up items?
That was it for me.
Thanks, Paul. Other council members?
Nothing from me.
Okay, then we'll move on to item 5, public input. This is open for any attendee to speak on items not listed on the agenda. The process is the raise your hand process. So I see Doug Silver, so Mr. Silver, we'll get you unmuted, and then we'll allow you to look. I think you're unmuted, Mr. Silver.
Good evening. Thank you. This is Doug Silver, 11419 North Vantage Lane. Thanks for allowing the input. I'm hoping you can share with the community a status update on the sewer lift project that sits among Shoreline Phase 2. By way of background, this project began sometime prior to October 2022, so that's over a year ago. In the spring, the council approved additional funds for the project, but there was little or no discussion on the construction process, only on eventual outcomes. There was a construction notice to the community that described the general goals of the project. That was a newsletter that came out in like September 2023. To my knowledge, there have been no communication with the community and directly impacted residents about the status of the project. I have learned that the project was supposed to be completed in late October. You know, like last month, if the weather was dry, we had one of the driest Octobers on record in the area. And yet there are currently large hills of dirt, at least 6 pieces of heavy equipment on the site, 6 cement catch basins showed up last week that are not installed, all sitting in the direct views of homes, and a daily parade of dump trucks and seemingly no end in sight. So if you can, it would be great if you could please give us some information about the status of the project, expected completion date, and what steps, you know, can be taken to mitigate the impact of this years long project. Thanks. I appreciate you taking the comments.
Yeah, I'm sorry that what was going to be complete and was complete by the end of October was the excavation work where they're putting in the new pipeline, running it up, along the state park frontage and across up into the Shoreline Drive and along the uphill side of that and over into the sewer lift station that belongs to SSD. So that was to be completed by the end of October and was actually completed by the end of October. Now there's a bunch of restitution work that has to get done. I think, Tim, you're on, I think the final date is sometime in the spring of next year, I think. Tim, is that right?
Yeah, that's correct. And most of the manhole stuff is for like airbags. It's just to, put some of, like you said, the finishing touches on some things. And so, but yeah, we're looking at a spring date where hopefully we can flip the switch and start taking our 2 existing lift stations offline.
Okay. So it is, it's a complex project. There is, a lot of earth work had to be done. A lot of restitution has to go in. Earth has to settle. Then we have to do paving in the spring, over the parts that were torn up from the paving, et cetera. So this is going to continue on, Mr. Silver, for, until sometime in the spring. I don't know the exact schedule off the top of my head, but in, April, May somewhere, I'm guessing, just because it depends on the winter, obviously, but something in there. And it's, I apologize that it is a disruption, but it's a necessary project. It will go away, and it will be completed, and the town will be in a lot better place as far as having the infrastructure it needs to manage the waste demands on the city. Looking for other hands. And I don't see any.
To start mine, we've got several phone calls.
Oh, if you're on the phone and you want to do a public comment, that process is *9. And please, if you do that, you also need to identify yourself so I know who's speaking. And I don't see that either. So we'll close public input and move to the agenda items. So section 6, item 1 is an update on the PID policy, and I think Rob Sant is going to talk with us. Rob, I see you there. How you doing tonight? We giving you?
Great. Thanks, Mayor.
Yeah, great. Thanks.
Yep. And I could share my screen too if it's easier. I have the agenda, the presentation pulled up.
I'm gonna break this down so it fits on the screen. There we go. I'm happy to switch the pages for you if you want, or I can give you. If you've got to change the document, we'll let you share. But otherwise, I'm happy just to flip the
Yeah,
pages.
no, same document. So thanks, Mayor and members of the council. So just a little background. I'm Rob Sant. I'm president at Urban and Main Consulting, an economic development consulting firm, and I am the economic development consultant, financial consultant for the town. On Monday, we met as an economic development committee to kind of talk about the PID policy, and the EDC thought it would be a good idea to kind of go get online and do a brief overview of public infrastructure districts and the specific town policy and kind of outline the process steps going forward. So about within the last year, the town adopted a specific policy and procedure related to PIDs, but kind of just a brief overview. So a public infrastructure district, or a PID, is a financing tool with defined boundaries. It's a fairly new tool, at least in the state of Utah, that was created by statute in 2019. It's similar to a special assessment area, but definitely different as well, but kind of the same type of boundary and things like that. A public infrastructure district would be kind of a special separate district. Once created, it's qualified to issue bonds specific to financing public infrastructure improvements within those defined boundaries of the district. And then PIDs are initially approved by cities and counties. but it's separate, and it's a separate standalone financing district that's not part of we'll call them the creating entity, the city or county that created the PID. And PIDs are created for nearly all types of development, and it's really a financing mechanism that lets growth pay for growth. And then the tax revenues and fees that are generated within the PID boundaries are used to pay for bonds. If you want to go to the next slide. So this kind of just gives a breakout of the potential revenue sources and the uses within a public infrastructure district. So I would say overall, so PIDs can use property tax or mill levies from property tax within a project area that generates tax increment. They could also use that. Sales tax, transient room tax. I listed impact fees, but they're not impact fees like the city charges. So I'd probably just say a fee. Although all those could be potential revenue sources, for the most part, a PID relies on that property tax mill rate levy to fund the bond. Those revenues are then pledged to pay bonds that are issued by the PID, and those proceeds, as I mentioned before, must be funded for public infrastructure. And some of those potential uses could be parks and recreation, street improvements, water infrastructure, wastewater infrastructure, parking structures, public transit, really anything that's a publicly owned infrastructure. Go to that next page. So this is just kind of a breakdown of the three potential parties that are impacted by PIDs. So the first one would be the creating entity. So in this case, that would be Hideout Town. So something that's important to highlight here is there's no recourse to the creating entity. So that's one of the benefits of creating a PID instead of a special assessment area. Things like that are in the event that the public infrastructure district can't pay that annual bond payment, there's no other revenue source pledged by the city or the town that they could then try to go after. The other one is the PID bond. Since it's separate from the town, they don't impact the creating entity's credit rating, and they also don't appear on the creating entity's balance sheet. And then kind of the last one is, as a PID's created, it's governed by via interlocal agreement that adopts a governing document that's between the creating agency entity and the public infrastructure district. There would be a separate governing document for each PID created in the town. So as a developer approaches the town about creating a PID, then you would draft a governing document specific to that PID. And then if another developer approached you at a later date to create a PID, you would draft a separate legal governing document for that PID. Next column is the homeowner. Again, no recourse to the homeowner. And the homeowner is only responsible for their own share of taxes. And undeveloped properties aren't the financial responsibility of current homeowners. And then the last one is one of the main benefits that a homeowner would receive of the PID is a lot of times there's additional amenities and other things above and beyond what you typically find in a town or a city that the homeowner benefits from being in that public infrastructure district. And then the last one to talk about the district, that next column. So any due diligence prior to bond issuance is the responsibility of the potential bondholders. There are annual audit and disclosure requirements by the PID board. That's something that is outlined in the governing document, is what type of reporting they need to do each year. All expenses and costs must be certified by a trustee and reviewed. And then the last one is, and the main benefit of why a developer would want to issue a PID is they're able to issue tax exempt bonds for infrastructure, which is more cost effective. We'll go to that next slide. So these are two main examples of the type of bonds that public infrastructures can do. So the first one would be a special assessment, and the second column would be a unlimited tax general obligation bond. Those GO bonds are funded through property tax. The other ones are through assessment liens on the property. So both bonds are tax exempt. Special assessment bond, you're typically a 20-year around maturity. There's no liability for the town or the creating entity. Collateral on those would be a lien on the land. And then again, your potential revenue source for those are liens on assessment liens on the property. The next column is for the GO bonds, also tax exempt. They have around a 30-year maturity. Again, no liability for the creating entity. There's no collateral. And then those are the potential revenue sources that can go to pay those GO bonds. Go to that next one.
All right, one question on this, Rob, if you don't-
Yeah.
If it's set up and it's only gonna be done through a tax increment, they can't, and that project has issues, that the bond holders can't go after other things like sales tax or impact fees if they hadn't been pledged at the beginning, right?
Correct. It's just whatever's pledged when the bond's created are the only sources of repayment.
Okay.
So,
Want to clarify. Thanks.
yeah. And then,
Rob, I'm sorry,
Go
this
ahead.
is Chris.
No, yeah,
Can you go back? Mayor, can you go back to the previous slide?
Yeah.
My Latin not so good. What's ad valorem property tax?
so it's just like, it's property tax. It's just the official way of saying property tax.
Okay, so also an example of, well, let's talk about what's happening over in MIDA, the MIDA project area. Do you know if that's an LTGO or a special assessment with their PIDs?
So I think it's an LTGO, but I'm not 100% sure. And I know I should have said before I started too, I have Sam Hartman's also on this call, and he works for DA Davidson, who's one of the main financing people beyond that create PIDs and help underwrite PIDs. So he's also available to answer some of these questions just in case I can't.
Thanks, Rob. Didn't mean to.
Yeah, but I believe they're LTGO, but they're also using the tax increment that MIDA creates.
Okay, thanks.
So this is the governing document. I want to spend a little time on this because this is the main kind of the step that the town has to ensure that whatever PID is created will kind of achieve the result and the vision that you want with it. So as I mentioned before, PIDs are governed by a governing document that's agreed to at the time of creation between the public infrastructure district and the creating entity. Some creating entities will have standard policies and procedures. It should be noted that not every creating entity has those policies and procedures. However, you as a town council adopted specific policies and procedures that Randy Larson from Gilmore Bell helped you adopt earlier this year. But on top of that, a separate governing document is drafted and adopted for each individual PID. And that governing document is enforced via an interlocal agreement between you, the town, and the public infrastructure district. And then that governing document outlines the limitations and the powers of the PID. So that an example of that would be, what taxes they're allowed to use to help pay for those bonds. Another one would be it establishes those reporting requirements they're required to do. It outlines what specific improvements you're allowing the PID to finance. It also would establish any debt and mill rate levy limits. So that would be how much taxes they're allowed to charge, and then, up to a certain amount of debt. It would also be, you could outline the PID board member term lengths and the transition to elected board seats. So eventually when a PID's first created, it has the property owners sit on the board, but then eventually they transition to an elected board seat. And so that would be something that you could outline in that governing document, the process, and how long it would take to get to that transition. You could also outline enhanced disclosures to future property owners that are within the PID that are required as, current homeowners or people sell property to the future owners. And then the last, I think there's one or two more. You would establish the standards for bonding, any procurement, how long a PID has a lifespan for. You could also outline in there, if a PID has any certain amount of inactive life, that could also go towards terminating the PID and other things as well.
Yeah.
And I believe that is the last one. So I didn't include this, but your policies and procedures that you've adopted, they're in line with other policies and procedures that I've reviewed. It seems like Gilmore Bell has helped a lot of potential creating entities adopt their policies and procedures. And so yours are really similar with Weber County, Washington City, and a lot of those other ones that have created them. The one thing that could be missing that you might want to do, just to help offset some of those initial questions that you receive from developers, would be kind of a process map that outlines the various steps that are outlined in your policies and procedures, and then approximate time that each of those would take. So typically a PID takes anywhere from 3 months to 6 months to create. I would say that since the town hasn't created one yet, this first one, could take probably more towards that 5 to 6 month range, just because, we're learning as we're going, and we want to make sure that as this is the first one that we set our table up for success for all the various PIDs that could be coming down the pipeline. So any questions?
Council?
We enacted this in March or April of last year, if you remember. So, based upon what we reviewed Monday at the EDC, we covered most of the bases that were proper. I think was it from Rob? It was Randy Larson who kind of helped walk us through this in March of last year. Did a good job, and I think I think other than maybe for a process document or a timeline, we're pretty covered. All the things are in there. That's at least from the review by the EDC and review. Well, I think the council did a pretty good job last year of the doc. So I don't think we really need to do much more. To your point, Rob, I think on the timeline, I think that could just be a suggested, timeline. We don't have to officially, adopt it as an ordinance, to create more paperwork or, just, put something together that is useful for the applicant.
Yep, I wouldn't adopt that. I would just create that so you could send that over, just so there's a expectation of what it could be. Yep, I would agree with that.
And if it's helpful, this is Sam Hartman from DA Davidson. It's nice to meet you all. I just wanted to join. We've participated in helping form almost all of the PIDs across the state, working with jurisdictions to do that. And so if it's helpful tonight, I could talk through kind of just the checklist of things that need to transpire to get from today to a project applicant having, or the jurisdiction creating the PID and having that be a tool for financing purposes.
I think we'd be interested in seeing that. That's basically the process flow, a piece of the process flow that Rob was talking about. So I think that would be of interest. I don't know if tonight's the right night for that. I don't, because I don't think we're creating a PID tonight, but certainly I think we'd like to have some time set aside where you could share that.
Yeah. Happy to do that.
It's just a suggestion. I agree with you. Tonight's probably not the right night, Sam. Could we, in conjunction with what you just said, could you also come back and add in that discussion how you go out and shop and distribute the bonds, so to speak, and give us any updates on, what you're doing from town bonding as well, from distribution. That would be good sharing for council at some point.
Happy to do that.
So I'll leave it at Ralph. You can work with Sam to put together something on that. And we'll get something on the agenda at either one of the next coming meetings to get through all that. Depends on whether we're doing a PID or not. So it's going to be more imperative that's
gonna
Right,
be
and I know,
part of
I
any
know
process.
that, you know, I know that the Bloom team has talked about a pit, so we may hear more about that tonight. So. Okay,
I'll take that offline.
okay,
So,
thank you, Rob. Thanks, Rob, thanks, Sam, appreciate it very much.
Thank you.
Very, very helpful.
Thanks,
Good
guys.
reminder and clear, simple to follow charts, very, very helpful. At this point, I think it's actually sunk in. Presentation from the Peace House of Park City. Peace House is a great organization. They do terrific work for people in need. I think Kendra's with us tonight.
I am. Thank you, Mayor.
So welcome, Kendra. And I'm personally familiar with the Peace House. My wife has done some work for you guys over the years, so glad to have you with us.
Well, thank
I'll
you.
drive if you want, or if you want to steer, you can. Just let me know.
You know what? It's okay. I'm going to let you drive. Does that work all right for you? Just because I have 3 monitors here and I feel like I will somehow fail in getting the right monitor shared with you this evening. So, but I just really appreciate having the opportunity. Thank you, Mayor and City Council members and the community that is here with us tonight. Peace House is a nonprofit organization. We're located in Park City, but we serve both Summit and Wasatch counties. And our mission and vision is really related specifically to serving the population of folks who are impacted by interpersonal violence and abuse. And those are typically abuses such as intimate partner violence, family violence, child abuse, sexual assault. We serve adults and children, and we only serve children when they are coming with the adult survivors. But our goal really is to end interpersonal violence and abuse in our communities. And we do that through both intervention services that we provide and prevention services. And I'll talk a little bit more about some of those programs and services that we have, if you don't mind moving along in the presentation. I wanted to share with you because I think people often are extremely surprised by the high rates of intimate partner violence and sexual assault in this state. You know, we are a very family-centric state. We also have some high rates of violence and abuse. And what we see is about 1 in 3 women and 1 in 5 men will experience domestic violence in their lifetime living here in Utah. And our rates are higher than the national average. The national average is 1 in 4 women will experience domestic violence. Sadly, we have pretty high rates of domestic violence homicide as well in Utah. Over the last 15 years, about 40% of all homicides were domestic violence related in the state of Utah. And that is approximately 1 domestic violence homicide each month here. We are, you know, in the business of doing what we can to prevent domestic violence homicides by providing some really key services and programs and partnering with our law enforcement partners here, both in Summit and Wasatch counties. We have a program called the Lethality Assessment. And this is an assessment that's used by law enforcement when they respond on scene to a domestic violence incident. It is comprised of 11 questions that's based on research. And those questions help us understand the dangerousness of somebody's situation. And so if somebody screens in high danger or high lethality, our law enforcement partners will call our 24/7 helpline to ensure that that victim has an opportunity to talk to an advocate right away and do safety planning and get connected to services that we provide that are around the clock. And then lastly, we have very high rates of rape. And again, higher than the national average since 1991. Dr. Julie Valentine, who's a forensic nurse and a professor at BYU, has done a tremendous amount of research around the incidences here in Utah. And providing sexual assault services for victims has been a newer addition to our mission at Peace House. Historically, for about 24 years, we were completely centered around providing services for domestic violence and family violence victims. But in 2020, we launched a pilot program because we saw a huge gap in services here in Summit and in Wasatch counties in terms of providing support for sexual assault survivors. So all of the programs that we offer here at Peace House are available for sexual assault survivors as well. In addition, we started a hospital response team so that we have advocates who can respond to the Park City Hospital to provide support when somebody may present there after a sexual assault and they're receiving medical and forensic exams there by specialized nurse examiners. So that's a really important aspect of what we've been able to provide the community just more recently in the last 3 to 4 years with our program expansion. You can go ahead and go to the next slide. So it's really important for folks to know that we serve anyone who's affected by these types of issues. We serve individuals, we serve families, multi-generational families. We serve women, we provide services to men, and we can provide services to anybody regardless of how they identify. We serve people who are affected by all forms of abuse. And that is what's really important. Oftentimes people identify domestic violence as being only physical abuse or sexual abuse. And it's really important that we have the opportunity to educate folks in our community that we can provide support to somebody who is experiencing any type of abuse. It can be emotional abuse, verbal abuse, financial abuse, maybe coercion and isolation. We have seen the circumstances become very dangerous and lethal in situations where individuals have not experienced physical violence, but they've experienced other types of tactics of coercion and control. So it's really important that as community members, as friends and family, we can pick up on some of those red flags if we have concerns about somebody. We haven't heard from our friend or family member in a long time. There's unexplained bruises. There's a lot of control. They have to disconnect from their social circles. Those are all red flags and opportunities for us as friends and family and community members to say, are you okay? Is everything okay at home? Go ahead and move on to the next slide. So at Peace House, we actually have the benefit of having all of our services on one campus. And what has been so incredible about that with our new campus, and many of you have maybe been along the journey with us as an organization. We started with a small emergency shelter in the downtown Park City area. It was a 5-bedroom, 3-bathroom house. We expanded and had an outreach center in the Prospector business area there. But again, behind, the doors of a larger building and not always easy to find. And our community here in Summit and Wasatch County said, we want to support ensuring that we have adequate facilities for victims of domestic violence and sexual assault now. And so we built a new community campus and we moved into that campus in 2019. We've been here now 4 years, which seems like it was just yesterday when we moved in. But this new campus allows us to co-locate all of our programs and services. In addition, we're publicly disclosed. We're 2 doors down from the Park City Hospital, right off of the exit on Highway 40. So we're much more accessible for both Wasatch and Summit County folks who might be living on the eastern side of the county, folks that are in Hideout. And we're easier to find now because we are a cornerstone, a hub of community resources. We have 8 programs that we run in our campus. We still continue to provide emergency shelter. We have a 24/7 helpline, which means that we have professional trained advocates that are available to take calls anytime, day or night. We never turn the lights out here at Peace House. This organization is open 365 days a year. There's always staff here every minute of every day. So if somebody's only option was to come to our front door, there would be somebody here to speak to them, whether it was 2 p.m. during the business week or 2 a.m. on the weekend. We also offer transitional housing program, which is a longer term housing program. And we're seeing some incredible outcomes for families who actually have more time to rebuild their lives free from violence. We offer clinical counseling with master's level clinicians that are trained in trauma-based modalities to support victims of domestic violence and sexual assault. Case managers, legal advocates that help with protective orders. I mentioned our sexual assault victim services. And then we have our education and awareness programs where we provide prevention education. We go into the schools in both Wasatch and Summit counties and provide age-appropriate curriculum for young people, but we also provide presentations to the community, whether it be understanding the dynamics of domestic violence to what resources are available at Peace House. With young people, we're starting to talk about things like child abuse prevention in the early ages of elementary school, and we graduate those conversations into conversations about healthy relationships as young people get into middle school and high school. Teen dating violence is a significant issue here. Actually, in the state of Utah, it's quite shocking. About 20% of young people between the ages of 11 and 17 report experiencing abuse in relationships already at that young of age. So we have the opportunity to build skills around healthy relationships and also hopefully intervene earlier on so that we can prevent and break these cycles of abuse that happen in relationships and in families. And then lastly, this facility has a space for kids. We have children who live on our campus. And so we're going to be launching into some more specialized services for children who live here and children who are living in the community that need some additional support services, everything from safety planning to education classes for kids. So again, we are not only intervening and breaking that cycle, but we're hopefully preventing future generations in using violence in their relationships. You can go ahead to the next slide. I actually had a video to show you, but because I know there's limited time, I'm not going to show you that video tonight. What I'm going to do is go through the next few slides and just give you a little more details about each of these programs. And it also gives you a visual so you can actually see what the inside of our facility looks like. And I want to share this because I think this is really a unique opportunity for people to know that we actually can give you a tour of a first floor of our facility so you can see more closely the work that happens behind the doors here at Peace House. You won't interact with the people who are receiving services, but you will have an opportunity to see how our facility is organized in terms of where we have our community resources versus our residential programming. And it's an opportunity to just really get to know the facility yourself so that when you're referring somebody, you have the opportunity to speak firsthand to that. When I've been doing this work for about 25 years now in the state of Utah, and oftentimes when people hear emergency shelter, they really visualize like a big, large space with lots of cots. And we want people to visualize the space that you see here, which is our community room at the emergency shelter. We have 8 units of emergency shelter where we can house up to 24 people at any given time. This is really meant to be a temporary space for families that need to immediately flee violence. We have staff here 24/7. So if somebody needs help in the middle of the night, there's somebody here to offer support to them. There are 8 private rooms with their own private bathrooms, and our facility is designed so that we have sort of like swing suites, so we can expand the size of those rooms to meet the size of family needs. The picture that you see here is our community room that has a dining area, a living space, a little reading corner. You can go ahead to the next slide. And then you can see here that we have the kitchen area there in the back. The door that you see to the right is where the advocates are at 24/7, and they're able to provide support to our families around the clock. We're ADA accessible, and really important for everyone to know, all of our services on our campus are free. Go ahead and move to the next slide. Our helpline information is here, and I know that you've included this in the city council packet. So for folks that are looking for this helpline information, this again is open to anyone who may be calling. It might be somebody who's affected by domestic violence or sexual assault victimization. You could be a friend or family member, a faith leader. We have doctors call us, dentists. We have, family members, parents who are concerned about their adult children, employers who are concerned about how to approach an employee because they're concerned about their well-being. So our staff are not only trained to provide support to people who are being affected by the issue, but also to people in our community who want to know, how can I have this conversation, or what resources do you have that I can refer someone to? So again, 24/7, staffed by professional trained advocate staff that are available to answer questions. And it is confidential and anonymous. So for people in the community who might be just reaching out for the first time, they don't have to tell us their name. We have the opportunity to talk with them about their circumstances and provide some safety planning and resources. It's not unusual. It takes sometimes up to 9 times for a victim of domestic violence to actually leave their abusive partner permanently. So we know that sometimes people are just kind of dipping their toes into the water by making this call and trying to understand what they're experiencing. Go ahead and go to the next slide. Our transitional housing program, I mentioned before, longer term housing program. That shelter is really a 30 to 90 day stay. Our transitional housing, families have up to 2 years, and this is really a place to do skill building and give them the opportunity to increase their safety and also their self-sufficiency. It's a low barrier program, so you do not have to be employed. And we do have what we call a licensing fee. So it mirrors what a leasing agreement looks like in your typical apartment or a landlord relationship with a tenant. But what we do is we collect rent based on folks' income, and it's very affordable. And then we save that rent in an escrow account so that when that family is moving out and exiting the program, they can use that money to get into a permanent housing option. We've had families move into apartment complexes. We've even had a family who was able to benefit from affordable home ownership and move from this space into home ownership after living here for 15 months. The things we focus on when folks are in transitional housing are life skills, increasing their self-sufficiency. It's an opportunity for them to get resources in place and be able to just take some time to rebuild their life while they have connections to those support services like the legal advocate or a counselor. Rebuilding your life is difficult. And as you can imagine, if you had to leave your household in the best of circumstances, you couldn't do that in 30 to 90 days. So transitional housing really gives people up to 2 years the opportunity to do that. Go ahead and go to the next slide. I mentioned that all of our services are co-located. So again, in this facility, on our first floor, we have our community resource center. So we have those licensed clinical counselors that are there to help families heal and to support them with that process. We have case managers that are really individual advocates assigned to families so that they can walk alongside that victim of domestic violence or sexual assault and help them identify what their needs are, help them identify resources to increase their safety and their self-sufficiency. So everything from getting connected to law enforcement, to connecting with childcare resources, to working on employment through cover letters and resumes. We have financial management classes that we offer here as well, in coordination with some of our local banks and credit unions. All of those pieces of life that are needed to be in place so that you're able to be self-sufficient and you have increased safety are really done in partnership with a case manager. So case managers help those individuals just connect all the dots and all the resources. We also have a legal advocate who has the opportunity and the ability to provide legal advice under a pilot program here in the state of Utah. She's been certified under that program to provide support for protective orders and civil stalking injunctions, which are really key civil relief actions that can help victims of domestic violence with their circumstances and keep their abusive partners legally away from them. Go ahead to the next slide. We mentioned the sexual assault victim services. Again, we have the hospital response team that responds out here in Park City. We have a partnering agency out of Utah County that's currently going to the Wasatch County Hospital there in Heber. But we're hoping that we'll be able to provide that service in the near future as we've been building capacity with our sexual assault program. It's important for you all to know that we have the capacity to have mobile advocates. So we have advocates that are actually in the library in Wasatch County. It is something that we could certainly explore if Hideout has, a city space that we could have an advocate come there once a month, so that it just makes it more accessible for people in the community. They can come into, a city building and be coming in to pay their water bill, or maybe coming in to talk with an advocate about a situation that they are aware of, or maybe they're experiencing themselves. So we have a lot more flexibility in how we can deliver services. And we have two advocates, one that is an advocate for domestic violence victims and one that is a sexual assault victim services advocate, that travel across the counties to provide that support right there within each community. Go ahead to the next slide. Our education and awareness, I mentioned earlier, our youth education and our community education, really opportunities for us to share our resources, but also to share skill building with our community members in hopes that we can move away from using violence and abuse in relationships, and that we can shift some of the social norms that have been in existence for a period of time, a long time historically, where domestic violence has really been viewed as a private matter. We want people to understand that this is not a private family matter. It's a public health and safety issue, and it has lifelong impacts for people who experience it. They have higher rates of substance abuse and mental health issues. If you experience it as a child, you have much more risk factors to experience it as an adult or to use violence as an adult. So that education awareness piece, coupled with our intervention programs, are really critical in ensuring that our communities get, a robust, well-rounded support in addressing these issues. Next slide, please. Children's services, we're on the cusp of launching into children's services. What our goal is to actually provide specialized support for kids. Our kids, they often are the most impacted by these issues, especially younger children. It actually impacts the development and growth of their brain in the early stages of childhood. And so it's important for us to be providing these intervention services, but also to have a place where kids can just be kids. And so we have a facility with a space that we're hoping to turn into respite childcare, so that kids can have an opportunity to come down and spend time doing kid things, playing, doing arts and crafts, but also having that space when needed from a therapeutic perspective, where therapists can actually work with kids and do play therapy in the space as well. Next slide, please. I'll just talk briefly about what we're seeing. We have seen a 41% increase in need this last fiscal year. We are seeing significant, numbers of people coming to us and reaching out for different types of services. And this slide here just demonstrates the total unduplicated clients that we served last year, 470. That was about 125 more clients than the previous year. So we know that there's been an increased accessibility because of our location, but also the awareness and the opportunities that we've had to get into the community and share that there are resources available. And then just, I think, the sheer fact that our communities are growing. More people are moving to Summit and Wasatch counties. And so as we have more families moving in, as we have more individuals moving in, naturally, we're going to see that more services are needed. So it's really important that as an organization that we can continue to try to keep up with those needs. And specifically related to Hideout, I just wanted to share with you, last year we served seven adult clients from the Hideout area. So people in your community are benefiting from the services. Those services included everything from receiving counseling services to receiving emergency shelter services to helping navigate future housing options. So we know that people in Hideout are affected by these issues, and we're grateful that we're here to be able to serve your community, and just encourage you to continue to share the information and the resources on Peace House, so that individuals that are affected by these issues in Hideout know that they have a safe place. I'll just briefly share this with you as well. We're just really seeing, again, tremendous outcomes for families. About 92% of the clients we serve feel like they have received services that have benefited them, that have supported them, that have increased their health and their safety. One client said that she felt emotionally, healthier than she had in years. Our emergency shelter is honestly a place where we are saving lives. The worst possible outcome for domestic violence is domestic violence homicide. And unfortunately, it is the tragic reality that we have seen even in our own communities. In Wasatch County last year, we had a tragedy there in Heber City. So it's really important that these services are available, that we're getting the information out there, that people know that we're available around the clock, and that we can help save lives and change lives in our community. Go to the last slide there. Again, how you can help. Spread the word, share with others. We're always interested in private and public partnerships with our local municipalities. So if there's opportunities to have those conversations, join Peace House for events and activities. We have some exceptional awareness activities. We just concluded Domestic Violence Awareness Month here in October. But as we get into 2024, we have the opportunity to gather again in March for our spring fundraising event that increases awareness about our resources and services. And we have some wonderful keynote speakers. So we just really want to make sure that you all know that we are a resource here in the community, and that if there are things that we can be doing to collaborate more closely with Hideout City to ensure that the citizens of your community are able to have access, or if you want more information about what types of services individuals are seeking, we're happy to continuously be communicating with you and ensuring that the information is getting out there and that people in your community are getting connected to support. Thank you so much. I appreciate your time today. If there's any questions, you're more than welcome to reach out to me. My contact information is on the first slide. And thank you for your time. It means a lot to us to be able to have the opportunity to share with you in this forum, and we appreciate your support and your public service.
Thank you, Kendra. Question from council for Kendra while we got her. For any of you that may not be familiar with the Peace House, they do a terrific service for the community.
I know a bit about it. Thanks for everything you do.
Absolutely.
Yes, thank you, Kendra. I just want to mention, because you just gave that wonderful presentation, that we are doing a blanket drive here in Hideout. Our committee has put that together. You've probably seen it on the mailboxes and the newsletter. So please donate cotton twin blankets, drop them off at Town Hall, and we will be giving them to Peace House at the end of the month.
Thank you so
Sherry,
much.
Just so you know, Sherry, the bin is upstairs overflowing at the moment, so maybe we can do a pickup and create space for more drop off.
That's fantastic. Wow. Thank you so much.
Sherry, did you get that?
Yes, I got that. Thank you. We'll take care of that. I hit the wrong button.
No problem. All right. Thanks again, Kendra. We appreciate you spending time with us.
Just a question, is there anything more we can do? Like, I feel like the Peace House, I mean, I know I'm aware of it because I drive past it. And I think it was just built fairly recently, right? And
Yeah.
you guys moved in not that long ago.
Yeah, 4 years ago we moved in.
So
well,
it's like,
go ahead. No, I
ahead.
apologize. You were just asking about, if there are other things that you can do.
Because the kind of services that you offer, when you need them, you really need them urgently, right? And when you don't need them, you're kind of not even thinking about it. So is there anything more that can be done as far as just community awareness that you're out there and available should, the crisis situation arise with any individual or family?
Well, oh, go ahead. Who was going to speak? I apologize. Oh, I didn't know if I was talking over somebody, but Well, Chris, we have our brochures and we have what we call our tear-offs. We put them in, businesses or in city offices that have our 24/7 helpline number. We always encourage people, just put that number in your phone so you can just pull it up and you can give it to people. Volunteerism, this is a community effort. We can't combat these issues on our own. So we have some volunteer opportunities. People can go to our website and take a look at our volunteer opportunities. There are opportunities, everything from providing direct services, which, require some training, to providing some administrative support or getting involved in events. Certainly, financial gifts are fantastic. That helps us fill the gaps and ensures that we're able to, continue to do the good work that we're doing. As you can imagine, a 24/7 organization that provides, this breadth of services. Our budget is about $4 million a year. In-kind gifts, the blankets that you are all donating and you're doing a drive around, all of our beds are twin beds, and wintertime gets cold here and we go through blankets and all the things that you go through at your house, we go through times 100. I tell people, it's like toilet paper, paper towels, garbage sacks. So if you go to our website, our in-kind list is there, our wish list. That tells you the things that we have immediate needs around. We always have needs around certain core items. And then seasonally, we have, needs that change. But we really appreciate the support of the community in whatever capacity people can get involved. We really encourage people to come to our facility, take a look at what we're doing here so you have a better understanding of what those needs are, and then be sure that you have that telephone number. And if ever you have somebody personally who's having a hard time getting connected to services, I always have my phone number and my contact information. And I just encourage people to reach out to me directly so that I can ensure that they're getting connected to support that they need. We do a really good job of closing the gaps here, but we recognize, as you said, council member, you mentioned, when you really need the services, you really need them. And if you don't need them, it may not be on your radar. And we just want to ensure when people really need them, that they have that connection.
Thank you. That was a great answer. I was putting your contact information in my phone while you were presenting.
Fabulous. Yes. Perfect.
Yeah, no, maybe there's something we can do. I above and beyond what Sherry is already amazingly doing. But maybe I can talk about that with Sherry offline.
Yeah, that would be great. And if you would ever like to meet or talk about some of those, maybe future opportunities to collaborate or do more of this awareness work, I'd be more than happy to connect with you.
Thank you. How well did you do on Live PC, Give PC? I missed that.
Yeah,
did you do well?
You. Thanks we did pretty well. We raised about $150,000. So we feel really good about that. I think we surpassed our number of donors and we were first in the advocacy and people category. So we'll get a little additional gift from the Park City Community Foundation to help out with that. So if anybody was involved in those efforts across the community, thank you so much. We appreciate your support and thank you. I appreciate your time tonight.
Thank you.
All right.
Yeah.
Take care.
Pretty important stuff. Glad we took some time for that. The next item we have is an update regarding the Ross Creek commercial project area. Jan, are you doing that? Who's doing that?
Sure, I'm having technical difficulties, so I don't think I'm logged in, but I'm here. So, Ross Creek, exciting things are happening. The lake is a great amenity, and we've been having meetings with Jordanelle State Park, with NAC, with MIDA, sort of storming and forming ideas of ways that we can work together in enhancing the Ross Creek area, which in turn drives more business to the town. And it's coordinated in conjunction with the RFI we've sent out. We have several people who have responded to that RFI with very significant experience in commercial, and we're looking forward to putting together a team to evaluate those RFIs and move forward in RFPs, and good things are going.
You talk briefly about the timeline before you go with there.
Yeah, so we cut off on November 17th for the RFI, and then just depending on how many projects we have will depend on the length of time, and we're heading into the holidays, which is a little bit complicated. So it is a public meeting process, so we don't have the timeline set exactly yet, but we'll be in touch with the timeline.
Okay. Perfect. Thank you, Jan. Any questions for Jan, council? So, okay, then we'll move on to item 4, consideration of approving an ordinance related to the Trails project for appropriation of funds from the state. Do we have an ordinance to look at? Who's presenting that?
We need to continue that.
We need to continue that? Okay. Well, then we'll continue that.
Can I make a suggestion there? Like, we had our post-committee meeting today, it had gotten delayed. Jan, can we look at that in post-committee before it comes up in front of the council? Just because we were talking about this and we don't even know what this is.
You wanted me to update on the post?
No, she wants you to talk to the post committee about this thing since it bumps into their space.
Yeah, I summarized it for the post committee prior. We talked about some of the ideas for improvements. Park could be like a dog park, canoeing. Canoeing is an event that is consistent with the NAC. NAC would like to utilize the Ross Creek area. And we're still in the storming and forming. I've talked to some lobbyists about how much we could expect to go to the legislature and ask for an appropriation, and still having some of those conversations. So I don't really have anything to report on what we can expect at this point. It's mostly, we're still in storming mode.
I guess the question from Chris really is how does what you're doing relate to the Trails project?
Oh, the Trails project. Sorry. Okay, yes. Part of the appropriation would be for a trail improvement around the Jordanelle. So it's consistent with connecting lakefront communities. So Sky Ridge got an appropriation a couple of years ago, and we would include that in the ask. So that would be part of the potential improvement in the park area.
All right, so I guess let me ask you this then. As you get closer to figuring out what it is we're going to go ask for, please be sure to include the post committee.
Absolutely.
Before we take it up to council.
Yeah,
okay?
For sure.
That'd be helpful.
Okay. Thanks very much.
The next item is on the fee and rate schedule. Alicia, as I understand it, we're deferring that as well. We're discussing it, or with them, but we don't have a resolution.
Correct.
So who's leading the discussion on the fee and rate schedule changes?
I think Katie is.
Katie? Okay. Hi, Katie.
Hi, Mayor. If you can go down, scroll down a little bit more, I'll just change. They're redlined on here.
Yeah.
You can see the remodeling building permit fees. We were reviewing those and looking at that 11% of town review and inspection. And
sorry, Katie, you got frozen. We heard 11% and then you.
a few examples, and we thought it would be very. You hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay. So going back, remodeling building permit fees, we had 11% of town engineering estimate fees, and we thought those were very excessive as we looked at a few, and when they were running up at the 10, 15, 20,000, we said that really wasn't feasible for remodel. So we went and looked at what a lot of the other municipalities were doing, and a lot of them just take the same application, the regular building permit fees. So now we're saying we'd like to change it to be 0.75%, 0.75% of 1% of the total construction, which is significantly lower than the 11% of town engineering. And it certainly covers all of our costs, and it's reasonable and consistent with other municipalities. Plan review fee is the same thing as the building permit. It's 65% of the building fee cost. Then the other one is the electrical and mechanical. This is brand new. We had looked at this because some people had come to us regarding heat cables. And so we went through and said, okay, yes, it should be inspected. Yes, we'd like to review some of these. So again, we went to other municipalities around us and we found out what their fees were for electrical and mechanical building permits. And when we did a deep dive into how much does it really cost between the inspector and the trip out and the administrative, we thought we were right in line with what the other municipalities had. And they're all very close to Park Cities. So we adopted Park Cities electrical and mechanical permit fee. So I would like permission to be able to include the electrical and mechanical permit fee as well as modify the remodeling building permit fees.
Hey, Katie, this is Chris. If Tim is on, can you just explain what kind of electrical and mechanical, what kind of examples of those? I think you mentioned heat cable, Katie, but
yeah, there was a whole
right?
subdivision that wanted to put in the heat cables, and they would like to have had the electrical reviewed afterwards. So it was, there was quite a few. I think it turned out to be, I don't know, like 30 or 40 of them. So what we did was we went and we got the charges, and what you really have to do is after everything is done from an electrical or mechanical, they really need to go and inspect it and make sure it's set up correctly. So now we have the permit for us to be able to do electrical and mechanical reviews like the subdivision requested. So that's what drove this. And Tim, you might know some other electrical and mechanical permit fees that we would be an example.
No, I think you have summed it up perfectly. I mean, could be upcoming, some shoreline issues that we have with some water heaters in the future, but some things like that municipalities deal with for usually remodels, like Katie said, is what the fee will go towards.
And I think really too, Chris, is like, those Generex, those big generators, they get installed outside of people's homes and they're hooked up to all the electrical. It would be nice to be able to inspect those to make sure that the vendor put them in properly, because that could really cause a lot of problems. So it's things like that. So as they come up, and interesting enough, Chris, this is the first time it's really come up because of the heat cables. So we'll monitor it. And if there's additional ones or we don't think this is in line, but because it's very similar to what other municipalities do, we thought we'd adopt it and then go through the next, before we do the fee and rate schedule for next year, we're going to go through again and really make sure we're still in line. We're competitive in what it is that we're charging, and it's also reasonable from a cost perspective based upon Hideout's cost structure.
Okay. I guess it's great that you're putting this in. I'm glad, because I know we've had, like water heaters. That was a good example, Tim. I remember that, those problems that we had with one of the subdivisions recently. But when it comes to remodel, and I know we're still a new city, but I guess people are starting to remodel now. It's not just all brand new. Is there some indication someplace so we can educate the public on what they're required to have a permit for and what they don't need a permit for in their remodels?
Yeah, that's a great question, Chris, because when we haven't had any requests for a building permit remodel. So it's interesting. I said, well, what would that kind of include? If I want to take my bathtub get rid of the bathtub and just put a shower, do I need one? So there's some additional work that needs to be done on what does require a remodel. But if you were going to, extend your balcony or extend your patio or do something like that, I would assume, or add a new room onto your house, things like that, we would want. So we'll have to, yeah, good that you asked that question because I was asked the similar question as to what would require. So we'll look into that further.
Okay, that sounds good.
Anything structural, is number one, because it affects the integrity of the building structure. Some power stuff, I mean, running a new, I guess, Tim, let's take that on and do some research on where we want to do that. But
Yep.
you know, typically a 110 extension, you know, to put a plug in over the sink or something that wasn't there.
No.
Wouldn't, but if you were, you know, adding, you know, a second, if you're doing like dual 200 amp service and adding that second 200 amp, that would probably should get inspected because that's significant, stuff like that. So I think there's plenty of people who've got rules for this. I think we have some, there's some in the HOA rules as well that we can look at, but around when they have to be informed of these things, but we also can look at where we should be. So good question, Chris. We'll take that on.
Does that include you go to an EV, an electrical vehicle, and you have to?
Well, it depends what you're doing. If you're putting in a class A or one, whatever the high speed chargers, we probably should look at those
Because that's probably the most popular thing that's gonna happen.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I saw that as part of the electrical and mechanical permit fees. But I can look at that or work with Tim on that. But I think I saw the electric, putting it in someone's garage to be able to charge the car was part of the electrical.
So, I mean, a lot of them, you know, if you do a class 3, which is basically a 110 circuit, you know, standard 110 circuit, 15 amp, whatever connection, that's just an extension cord. So that doesn't require it. But if you're rewiring to put the class 1s in or A's, whatever they are, the ones that high speed chargers and pull, you know, 50 or 100 amps, and I think we probably should have.
Yeah.
And Chris, I asked the question, have we had any remodel permits issued? Thinking that someone might come back and say, okay, you charged me 11%, but the answer was no. There has been no remodeling permits at this time.
Okay, well, they'll be coming. They'll be coming.
Yes.
How did we come up with the number, the change, it's quickly 0.75 of 1%? If we had no remodel data, how did we come up with that number, Katie?
Benchmark.
We looked at what all of our neighboring municipalities do, and it's identical to what their building permits. So when you look at a remodel and you look at the building permits, there's a 1-for-1 correlation between the charges. Because they said pretty much a lot of the same things that need to be done at a much lower cost than obviously a building. So most of the municipalities just use the same guidance as a regular building permit for the remodel, and that's what we did.
We don't actually have a resolution tonight to discuss, from what I'm aware of. So, you know, this was informational at this point, and I guess we'll come back with the final version of the adjustments to the fee and rate schedule for approval at another time when we have a resolution to look at. Am I right? Okay, yeah, okay. So, okay. Thanks, Katie, for the update. Item 6.
My understanding.
I'm sorry? Let me say
Done,
something.
the resolution is today.
I think Katie froze again. I think she was trying to talk.
No, I just said he is correct that as of yesterday, there was no resolution out there to sign, so it will have to be deferred till we have something in writing.
Yeah. Okay, so we may revisit that next time. Item 6 is an Alicia item. Just as a reminder to everybody, there is an election. We talked about that at the beginning of the meeting. When those, on the 21st, when it closes, the ballots are collected and counted and so forth, and then we are apprised of the results. And, you know, we have a responsibility as the elected officials of the community to certify the election based on what the county is doing the counting, for us on this election because it has a countywide, the ballot includes a countywide referendum. So they'll be also counting the Hideout council votes. So we are required, I think, December 5th, to find some time where we can at least have a quorum to review the results and certify them as the community, that we're comfortable with what we've heard from the county on the count, and that we're prepared to support the result. We've done this before. It's not new. It's 15 minutes a meeting. So we need to figure out if we can get at least 3 of the counselors, because I don't count. 3 of the counselors and myself to be available on December 5th at some time. Again, for a phone call type meeting to certify the results.
Hey, Mayor, can we make it suggest 6 p.m. our normal meeting time on December 5th? I know I can make it.
And that's certainly allowable from the code perspective. I don't think there's any issue with doing it at 6. I just don't know what everybody's availability is on December 5th. So
Why don't we just poll everybody right now?
I'm getting ready to do that. Ralph's
Okay.
already got his calendar out.
I believe I'm here, back, so.
Okay. So that's Ralph and Chris.
I'm available on December 5th. Yes.
Katie, I'm sorry, Carol and or Sherry or Bob. I know, Bob, it's hard for you to commit given your
Phil, I can guarantee you I will not be on the North American continent on that date.
I can be there.
Thank you. So there's 3, and Carol, hopefully you could join as well.
Right now, it looks okay.
Okay, so let's call December 5th, 6 p.m. Alicia will send an invite, get it on everybody's calendar. All right. Thank you all. Okay, that'll be a very quick meeting. Alicia will share the results and we'll look at them and answer any questions that anybody has, and we'll vote. So should be pretty good. Okay. The next item is a public hearing to discuss and possibly approve an amendment to the official town. Now, the language for this and what we're actually going to do don't exactly line up. I should say that up front. Because of the public hearing notice requirement, the language has to remain the same, even though this project has morphed over time. So otherwise we have to start the whole notice period over and so forth. So in order to maintain the continued public hearing, remember at the last meeting, kept in the notes, there are items that were listed to be continued to date certain, which is now. So we're going to talk about zoning at the Bloom project, and then get public input on that, and then there's also discussion about an NDA, which we'll cover briefly. So I don't know, Thomas, are you going to go first, and then Jenny, or how's this going to work?
Yeah, Mayor, I think that's probably the easiest. I can kind of give you guys a quick overview. If you have any questions of me, I can certainly answer them, but then I'll turn it over to Jenny, and I think she'll have some potential slides that maybe she could present, and then we can do a question and answer discussion.
Sure. Do you have one of your usual write-ups for us, Thomas, that we should be looking at, or
I do. It should be
in the second link?
Yeah.
Even
It's
though
all
integrated? Okay,
Yep.
Gotcha.
That's right. Yeah, and you can maybe just scroll up a little bit to get the kind of background. So yeah, I'll just walk you quickly through this because I think you're pretty familiar with it. This is a project that started with a concept plan that was approved by the Planning Commission on April 17th of 2023, essentially getting a head nod to move forward with a more detailed concept plan and master development agreement. So this is for the 72 acres that form the eastern parcels of what we know as the Bloom property, the Salzman property. Those are the only acres that would be subdivided. The house property on the west side where the small pond is, that would remain mountain residential zoning. At the November 2nd, 2023 meeting, the Planning Commission favorably recommended the proposed rezone and master development agreement that was associated with it. I'll go through the master development agreement later because now we're just looking at the rezone. The proposal, if you don't mind scrolling down just a little bit more, Mayor, kind of split that bottom page if you don't mind going down just a little further and a little further. I know it's a little bit big. There you go. The proposed zoning designations for this development site would be neighborhood mixed use. That would accommodate the hotel and commercial area. R3, residential 3, would accommodate the 12 single family detached units, and residential 6, R6, would accommodate the 84 townhomes and the 53 cabins. There is also a natural preservation zoning district designation for the amphitheater and park and open space area. I think you may remember there was some discussion regarding residential casita. Just as a reminder, we ended up not needing that zoning designation. We were able to capture the cabins within the R6, and so that zoning designation will probably be put on hold. There you see the site. It's currently zoned mountain, 72 acres. You can see down below, we've got the ERUs that would be associated, how we would measure the ERUs for this project, I should say. That is exactly the language in our zoning ordinance. If you scroll up or down just a little bit further, you'll see the east parcel. Again, this is the 72-acre parcel. The proposal is for 217 units. That's down from what the original concept plan was approved for back in April. There were just some reconfigurations, kind of some redesign, working around the new road that leads up to Golden Eagle, et cetera. So it's about 217 units, 30 to 35,000 square feet of commercial. You can see the multifamily units are 8. The multifamily units, as a reminder, are the units above the commercial. So it's kind of mixed use down there. Boutique hotel, the cabins, townhomes, and single family lots. Again, the west parcel is not part of the proposed rezone. That'll just stay as is. Mayor, if you don't mind scrolling down to the next page, you'll see the concept plan. I won't go through this in too much detail, but essentially the primary access is off of State Road 248. Of course, you'll see that there's commercial down at the bottom, and then that larger building would be the hotel that kind of sits in the southwest corner of the site. As you meander up through the site, there's a series of roads with townhomes. As you go higher, at the very top right of that image, you'll see an area that is the area designated for the resort casitas, the cabins we're now calling them, right up in that area. And then up to the top left is the area that would be zoned R3 for the 12 single family lots. So the cabins would primarily occupy the eastern portion of the site, and again, the townhomes kind of in the central. The single family up on the north side where the property abuts to Golden Eagle, so kind of keeping a similar fabric. If you scroll down one more map there, you'll see the proposed rezone plan. So you can see there the yellow area up at the top there. That was where we had the single family. That's R3. All of that area to the right is, and the townhomes kind of in the central area, central section, I should say, is residential 6, R6. And then down at the very bottom in the red is the commercial, the neighborhood mixed use area. The green is the central part. That is where the amphitheater would be located, and that would be zoned neighborhood preservation, open space recreation protection area.
What is this one little green square?
I'm sorry, that is the amphitheater. I apologize. That is the amphitheater down there. The other area up above is the open space park recreation area. Sorry.
Okay.
Any questions on that? The proposed rezone plan has stayed pretty consistent, again, with the exception that we pulled out the residential casita zoning designation because R6 worked, but otherwise kind of from a geographic layout, it is pretty similar to the original concept proposed. Again, a little bit less density, but generally the lines have stayed pretty solid. And maybe, Mayor, we'll stop there. If there are no questions, I might turn it over to Jenny because the second part of that report deals with the MDA.
Thomas, I have just a couple questions before you move on. The R3, how big are those lots? The 12 of them, approximately, you know, are they like an average of a quarter acre? What are they?
Those are probably, go ahead.
Half an acre or a third of an acre?
About a third of an acre, that's right. Because you can get 3 units per the acre, so they'll average about a third of an acre.
Okay, so that's what residential 3 means, kind of 3 units
Correct.
per acre.
That's right. And so when you get down to the R6, it doubles the density, essentially what you're allowed. That's right.
And R6 is fairly dense, right? Is that just equivalent of something that we know? So if we were to think about over at Park's Edge, and maybe Ralph can help me here. He was probably more familiar with that neighborhood than me, but there are some buildings closer to the 248 that are they have multiples. They're fairly dense, right? But does anybody know if that's would be equivalent to R6 in terms of density?
Not exactly sure the size of those lots, but I can tell you that an R6 lot would have a minimum lot size of 6,000 square feet. So it would have a minimum lot frontage of about 55 feet and a depth of, the depth actually is open, actually. So it would have 6,000 square feet would be its minimum.
Is someone in the waiting room? Sorry.
You kind of start to think about 55 by.
As far as Chris, I would say we have R6 essentially equivalent of R6 within the town hideout. I mean, we've got twin homes.
But not Rustler. But not Rustler, right? Rustler's not that dense.
So Thomas, Soaring Hawk is 0.2, some of those lots, and they would not be R3, they'd be considered R6. They just
they're quarter acre lots roughly.
Yeah, so Soaring Hawk would be an example of what a cabin could potentially be that land size.
And just to clarify, that doesn't mean that there has to be 6 units per acre. It's the maximum in every zoning designation, R3, R6, they allow for different uses, different types of product. And that's why some of these fit better in those zoning.
I would suggest that Deer Springs, with their twin homes going in are fairly similar to what you're seeing here in the twin home portion.
Right.
We don't have the carriage house or whatever you want to call those cabins yet. But they're landed properties with some space around them. So I don't think, Chris, anything I've seen in this is probably less than some of what we've already got in town.
I'm just trying to imagine the density, looking at a flat image like this with contour lines, it's really hard to imagine.
What about promontory cabins? The promontory cabins, they'd be similar to that. If you have ever seen the promontory cabins that people stay in, or High Star Ranch. As far as the townhomes, that's the cabins. The townhomes we have is 34 feet wide. I'm not sure what shoreline are. Plain is 28, so they're significantly wider than plain, the townhomes.
Oh, that's helpful. Something that we've seen, it's just having the image is helpful. Thanks.
And so, I think, again, claim sounds low density because they have a large amount of dirt and only 88 units. But the 88 units are packed pretty tight because of the topography. So there's a fair bit of undeveloped space in claim. So they're pretty tight as well. In fact, probably tighter than a lot of what we're seeing here.
Right. And then that's the other thing, you know, the topography here, there's a lot of contour lines. I am trying to imagine, you know, again, that's just something, it's tough to envision what this could look like, knowing that this is variable terrain, hilly in that area, you know, how much, et cetera. That's those kinds of the things that I'm thinking about is, can we really pack this much stuff in something that's that hilly? And those are the things I'm thinking about.
Great, I'm happy to answer that. Let me know when I can do
Yeah.
that. If there's other questions I can wait to.
Can you speak up just a teeny bit? Because
Yes.
the mic's gotta capture you.
Okay,
Chris, are you hearing Jenny?
I can hear her just fine.
Go
all
ahead.
right. Alicia, you okay if I take over the screen?
I'm actually the one in charge here, so
Not Ed.
sorry. Now, if you want to share.
Mayor,
should
are
be
you
able to
okay if
share.
I take over the screen?
Yeah.
Okay.
You can
Awesome.
share.
And then are you all seeing the Bloom logo?
It is up there. It's
Perfect.
It's on the phone.
So thank you to everyone for having us here. Again, I'm Jenny and this is Ryan. We're excited to bring this in front of you officially for the public hearing portion. I just want to do a really quick high level and might help answer some of the questions that Chris has, and then we can answer other questions after this too. So just going to go through this. Let me know if I need to speak up. I do think we feel like it's helpful to show you exactly where this is. I know a lot of you know, but just to set the stage here, you can see the pink is the approximate area. It's right before the Golden Eagle entrance and the Tuhey entrance. And so you see Bloom entrance would be right in the middle of that. The land. So this shows you as you're coming from Hideout up towards Golden Eagle and Tuhey. And so here is the easement access road that's being cut in. A lot of you may have driven past that, but that would be the entrance to the site. And you can see the site starts low and it goes up here to what I call a knob at the top. And you'll see in the middle. And then it goes back down into a valley, and then it goes back up all the way to Golden Eagle to give those beautiful views for Golden Eagle. On the right-hand side, it's just sort of ravine type area there. So looking at the concept plan, you can see as we enter, we are keeping most of the density as close to the road as possible. So the commercial is right at the road, which helps with visibility, where there's a lot of data on the closer you are to main roads, the more customers you get. So it just helps on us recruiting commercial, also ease of access and keeping the traffic from the commercial further away from the Golden Eagle residents there. Then you have the hotel. So in the density, 217 units, the hotel is 60 of those. So that's the most dense, about 2 acres of the property is on the lower area by the freeway. And that is out of sight from Golden Eagle residents. There's the hill knob in the middle that they're going to look at. We're going to keep that beautifully non-developed so that they can look out over to keep their property values up, and also keep our property values up of the 12 lots behind that also butt up to Golden Eagle too. In the middle is the townhomes. So as you're coming up the main route, you get the townhomes there. We have kept them at 2, so duplexes mostly. And then we have created open space for trails to get up to the lookout, trails to get to the commercial, amphitheater and hotel, and then just other trails going through. As you go further to the back, we've put the 12 single family homes just to keep the essence, the Golden Eagle homes are at the top. It just blends into the community more as well. And then the cabins are on the right-hand side. They do not back up to that road that goes through to hopefully keep traffic to a minimum there. And they all are on the secondary roads that go off from that main road. We have put a little clubhouse over at the bottom right-hand corner here in the cabins. That is a really also higher hill. So that has a beautiful view up there as well. So that is the concept. Just going over it, just so you understand the essence of this. It's a boutique resort community is what we're calling it. And that is why the density has managed to stay so low. You see 217 units on there. It's actually got quite a lot of open space. we could probably fit 400 units on there. So just to give you an idea, I think our first proposal was over 350. Concept review was around 235 when we got that approved, and now we're down to 217. So going back to the Commercial Village Vision Board, we have brought on the all-star team. Katie Walking is on here. She's listening in. A lot of you have met her before, but she's available for questions. The Park City commercial space is probably a huge percent of their commercial clients. So they're really excited about coming on this project. The zoning we're asking for is 35,000 square feet of commercial. That fits enough parking for that amount of commercial. And just to give you an idea of what that would look like, 4 buildings of 5,000 square foot lower level, 3,000 square foot top level would make that 35,000 square feet very comfortable. We like putting the buildings along the road. The views are spectacular for potential rooftop restaurants or other things there. And then the hotel would be in the commercial zoned area as well. Neighborhood mixed use is that zoning. And we really want to have this as a community hub. And so it's really important that the vendors we get in there and tenants are places that are financially viable for our community. So that's what we're really going to be aiming towards. We would love to have places that people feel comfortable eating 2 times a week. So this isn't a place where you go to Main Street once every 6 months or for your birthday once a year. We really want these to be community tenants that we're really hoping to attract to this bill. So we put some examples there just to let you know what we're visioning this to be. You can see just some concepts here. On the bottom left sort of shows you the 4 buildings and how that would look. The bottom right, rooftop deck example. And then there's just some others to show you what we feel we'd like the look and feel to be. This is new, I think, since the last meeting. We just wanted to show you a hotel vision board. We'd love it to work with the landscape and fit with the feel of the design of everything else. So it's important to us that this community all is attractive and works together. Community spaces. We love the knob that I call it on the top for potential events, outdoor weddings in summer. We could have Sunday markets up there. It could be used for a lot of different activities that are community orientated. Trails would be throughout. Ideally, they would be linking to all of the major communities around there. So Golden Eagle would have access to get onto the trails. If there's ever a traffic light in the Golden Eagle Tuhei area, that could also connect to the trails. Hideout could connect to the trails too. So that would be the goal, is a trail system to get to these. Then we'd have residence townhomes, cabins and homes would be part of the residence. They're just sort of showing you the concept there. And on the left-hand side, the townhomes, enjoying the beautiful naturescape that Hideout has to offer. So people can come and really feel like they're part of what Hideout is, which is beautiful views, beautiful stars at night. Yes. And then a little more information, just so you're all educated on what you're actually doing for the community. The current zoning is mountain. The empty land where it sits right now, the town revenue for that is at most 18,000 a year on property tax. If it gets developed at its current zoning, you can fit around 53 single family homes. So its current zoning is 1 acre minimum lots. And so we have done what 1 acre would be, and that would get you around 53 lots. That would get the town no sales tax, no trails, and no community hub. So that's the current zoning that we're really hoping you'll change to this next zoning from. The total build out, if you had $4 to $5 million houses on that, would be 150K to 200K a year to the town from property taxes. Our proposed zoning, how that compares, is you would get city tax and transient room tax from this boutique resort community. And then you'd also get property tax. So the total that this is an approximation of 860,000 a year once this is developed out. But not only that, you would also get trails for the community, a community hub, and open spaces. So that's what the that would be with this rezoning that you would be hopefully liking. So what is the approximate timing and next steps? Just for awareness, we have gone through the first step. Application was submitted. The concept plan was approved. The zoning and MDA, the planning commission, just approved that. And now we're on step 4 with you. Zoning and MDA, town council is the current step. After this step, once it is approved, we would do a final application. The planning commission would approve that. And then we'd do final application. The town council would approve that. In tandem with this, the PID application, which we heard about, is a 3 to 6 month process. It can go in tandem and usually does go in tandem with developers proposing with towns. So where we're at on that is we're at the first step, which is prescribed in Hideout's PID policy. We have the LOI just with us, and we have a few things to insert in there, mostly around infrastructure costs that we're working on, and we should have that submitted in the next week. So we should be starting the 3 to 6 month project in the next week. So just talking about timing, starting infrastructure would be ideal for May, June next year. So that just gives you an idea of approximate timing. We all want this done right. So we want timing to be done comfortably and educated, and everyone feel like they're leaning in. Just saying that, this is just approximate to give you an idea. Our goal tonight is to answer your questions and determine a list of things the council needs to see to seek a vote on zoning and MDA. When we get into the MDA, these are sort of the open items. I just want to be very thankful to Planning Commission. I feel like they have really represented everyone well. And we are now at, you'll see the yellow portions that Thomas is going to go over. There's a lot of legal, just wordsmith edits, not a lot, but most of the things are just those final wordsmith edits and not really essence of adding anything. Public-private roads wording was recommended to talk about here, language details around the PID, and then developer contribution discussion, and then I'm sure we'll find other. So that is all of our information.
Okay. Thank you, Jenny. Thank you, Ryan. If we go back just to the layout for a minute, because it's a good way to look at it. There is approximately a few miles of road in there, and the infrastructure associated with that. So, to offset the income map is the cost to the town to maintain. So that's one of the things we'll have to take a look at. If we're going to be doing, depending on what pieces of that we're going to be doing, I'm assuming the commercial space will take care of themselves. I don't know what you're looking for, because I haven't seen the MDA yet.
Yeah, so
I know we're gonna look at that in a minute. Just, I don't think the council, certainly I don't think the council's had a chance to study the MDA.
Yeah, and I think
it just came out of
MDA,
planning commission last week, so.
Thomas, tell me what to do, whether I answer that now or we wait.
No,
So
you can
we'll cover that, and we'll cover that when we get there. Just,
Beautiful.
When developers come, they sometimes forget that they, while they bring opportunity, they also bring cost to the municipality. And that has to be, in our equation, so that we think it through thoroughly, because we're gonna have to add, vehicles, we're gonna have to add resource, et cetera.
And I can just quickly talk to this. If you see here, $230,000 by these cabins. So there's money being brought in each year for the road maintenance. So we've sort of laid that out, so we can talk about that after, but it's definitely, it's numbers, right? Like you said.
Yeah, I understand we get, B&C road funds and all the rest of that once they become public roads, but do they offset all the other costs? That's part of what we're looking at. That's why we're doing this.
Exactly.
So. All right, so Thomas, so she stopped sharing and we go back to you. What do you want to do?
We can carry on and go to the MDA because they are somewhat interrelated unless people, unless you want to have some discussion regarding the physical component of this development plan. There would be more zoning.
You need to take public before that or no? Comments or?
Well, we'll do it as well, but.
On the zoning, I mean?
Oh, yeah, I mean, we definitely took.
Or you can do the.
I think we all, you want to look, what's the right way to do this, Bob? Do we look at the whole thing and then come back, or do we?
I think it's more efficient and makes more sense to do it all together. There's no requirement that you can't wait to open the public hearing for both items at the end.
Okay.
After looking at both of them.
Okay, so if you don't mind stopping the sharing, I can go back to sharing what I'm supposed to do.
Mayor, I think that Bob Nadelberg may have a question. I think he has his hand up.
Okay. I couldn't see that because they were sharing, so I didn't see that. But Bob, if you have a question, by all means.
Yeah, hey Jenny and Ryan, good to see you guys. I may have missed it earlier, but did we talk about height restrictions on any of the residential units and also the hotel?
So we have that in the MDA, it matches the town code. Thomas might know them offhand, but we're not doing anything out of the ordinary. And so I'm happy to guess them. I know they're approximate, but I would love it to be accurate.
Thomas, if I'm not mistaken, I think the residential units in the town are restricted to 35-foot height above existing natural grade. And then it looks like the hotel will be a little bit above that. Is that correct?
That's correct. So the hotel is part of the NMU, the neighborhood mixed use zone. So since it is a mixed use building because of the commercial and let me grab this, because of the commercial component to it, it could have a height of 52 feet for the hotel. And then in the R6, we have a height limit of 35 feet, and I think that's the same in the R3. Right now. Yeah, that's 35 as well.
Okay, and I'm asking on behalf of all the people that are up in forgive me, it's a Golden Eagle, the latest development. Yeah, they've been through enough aggravation. I think the last thing they're going to need is going to want is any potential view corridors getting blocked. And Jenny, you had mentioned the hill, the knob as you called it, if I heard you right. That will soften some of that, but clearly there's going to be other parts of the neighborhood that will be in the view corridor for the folks living higher up in the Golden Eagle, correct?
Yeah, and that's a great point that we probably haven't made you aware of. We did a Zoom call with Golden Eagle residents. About 40 of them showed up. It was around a 4-hour informational call. And so we've definitely had their input on this from the start. The first plan that another developer had the hotel smack bang in their view corridor. The plan that the sales team had that was pitching to agents to bring buyers had it smack bang in their view. And so we have brought it down to by the road, and Ryan can talk to the height and what they'll see potentially. We also had an architect who lives in the area mock up a bird's eye view from every lot. So if you are interested in that, that was an amazing resource. He did it live and showed people their lots and their views and how the hotel couldn't be seen as well.
Okay, good. I'm glad. I was unaware that you had done that, so sorry I missed that. Hey, one other thing too, regarding the commercial center of town, just looking at the topography right there. If I had to take a wild guess, it looks like you're going to have to move a lot of dirt. One concern I would have would be if you have to cut out the sides of hills and then you have great big bare rock and dirt walls. That could be construed as an eyesore. Can you comment a little bit on what you envision for doing to mitigate any of that?
Yeah, so the commercial that you see there, it's in a little bit of a bowl kind of area, and that commercial area we run it with the contour of the land, and the buildings are closer to the road so that we can use those foundations as retaining and kind of mitigate some of the drop. And then the parking will be on an uphill side. We agree with you that we do not want to see big retaining walls, and that's the reason why we really designed it where it is, and the way that it's sited there on the lot. So that's, you know, I'm with you. Everywhere I drive, I'm in Hideout all day, every day. I see huge scars on the land, and it's not something that we want to create at all. So we're mindful of that as well.
So Thomas, do you want to? I mean, we do have cut and fill language in our code. Maybe you can talk briefly about that for Bob.
Yes, so we do have requirements in the new subdivision ordinance that do limit the amount of disturbance for land as well as limit the height of retaining walls. And so retaining walls couldn't exceed 6 feet for a single retaining wall or two tiered at a tiered approach that would be up to 10 feet tall with 5 feet spacing between the two. So that is capped actually in the new code in the subdivision ordinance. And land disturbance that can change topography significantly are also limited in the new subdivision ordinance.
And Bob, that was a big recommendation from the planning commission too, of just keeping as much natural that we can. And so we've added actually even more wording into the MDA. We can talk about that when we go through that, but just limits how much we can dig and disturb around our structures. So we're actually adding even more protection to that with the MDA.
And just specifically, that language was roughly 20 feet outside of a building facade is the allowed limits of disturbance. And then one of the exhibits included in the MDA also outlined larger swaths of land that would remain completely undisturbed. As Jenny noted, the knob, there's the Gully ravine on the far southwest side of the development site that would remain untouched, and all of those are noted in that exhibit.
Bob, I keep muting you because of the background noise, so you'll just need to unmute when you're ready to talk again if you are.
You know, okay, yeah, sorry, I didn't realize you could hear all that. And then, you know, one thing, Jenny, one thing I love that you guys did is on the some of the single family units, you had like rooftop living areas right there. Is there anything going to be done? Was that also going to be on top of the hotel?
We don't know yet. We would love it if the hotel partner that comes does a rooftop deck or utilizes that. So we would love that to be an option for the hotel. But we'd love to hear your fears or what you, yeah.
I think he likes it. We envision that in the restaurant for sure. That's kind of one of our main things. And then what you saw on that slide was the townhomes. We'd love to see, you know, some rooftop decks there. We don't have renderings of that single family homes yet, the 12. But just I was on one of the roofs of my houses I'm building in Soaring Hot today. I'm like, if this had a deck up here, this would be epic. So it's something that we want to do tastefully, but that we think with the views here, and they're just so incredible and magical. And I'm standing on the roof, I'm like, why do we waste all this space? And so, you know, it's definitely something that we want to incorporate into the different parts of the development.
Yeah, I'm sure some of the residents might have some concerns that, you know, sometimes builders put equipment and machinery on the rooftop, which of course is an eyesore, but it doesn't sound like that's the direction that you guys are going. Any thought to maybe possibly doing what they call living roofs? Living roofs, is that the term for it? With you know, maybe vegetation on top.
Yeah, that's a possibility. We haven't gotten that far yet, but that's definitely a possibility. And just to make sure we're on the same page, when you say equipment and different things on there, what are you envisioning, just so that we can understand, make sure we're on the same page?
Well, I think commercial stuff typically has the HVAC stuff sitting on the roof.
Yeah.
Right. And so, you know, typically, you know, they're shielded. So you know, you put up,
okay,
but they also have to be open for ventilation. So it's, you know, some kind of fencing typically that has slats in it. So you're not looking at a compressor, but it's there.
Yeah.
Yeah. And if that's not already in
or a water tower, or, you know, cooling
if
tower.
that's not in the town code, we'd be happy to add that to the MDA, that they need coverings around it or something.
So yeah, Bob, I mean, I think, you know, I don't know what's in our code around that. Thomas can address that, but I think that's a good point. We can put some language in that, you know, I mean, for the way these buildings are typically built, not everything can sit outside and on the ground. So, But we do need to think about, whatever goes in is not on the site yet. But,
And yeah, if it's mostly commercial, there's townhomes above it, so we definitely are on board with that, as well as not wanting our townhomes looking over a bunch of air compressors and air conditioning units and stuff like that, so.
I don't know if that's in the town code, is it?
I don't know, I'm asking
Yeah,
Thomas.
yeah, that's a good question, Thomas,
It's a
because I don't remember
Make a
when we
note on
put
that.
that code together, if we addressed the rooftop.
I don't know that we have specific rooftop mechanicals noted in the code, so that may be something we want to incorporate in the MDA. That's a pretty specific requirement, so it's probably more appropriate for the MDA. The other reason that may be applicable here is because there is a request for additional flat roof allowances. And so mechanicals that could sit on a flat roof that might not otherwise sit on a slope roof, we would want to note that those would be screened. And I think that Jenny and Brian have committed to that earlier anyway.
When did we finally resolve, or you, I listened to the last two planning boards, I wasn't here traveling, as you know, so, what was the quality of the hotel that we settled on in the MDA? Was it free?
Yeah.
3-star or anything above that, or what?
Yeah, so in the MDA right now, it's a 3-star, and then there were some additional requirements that the planning commission would like to see on there. We also have in there that the town council, if it's not a 3-star, it doesn't match those, the town council can choose to still approve it, like if it's a boutique hotel that doesn't have one of those things. So that's currently where we stand. The requirements, just so you all know, one of them links to the building timing of commercial. So that may be hard. So we might be discussing that in a session to link product types when a hotel isn't responsible for that. It's just a lot of risk for them that we may not be get a hotel in with that one line. But the essence of what is wanted, we can work out legally wording and everything, because the town council can always say, no, we do like this hotel for our community, and we like what they're bringing, but they're not one of the 4 requirements.
Okay, well, the one thing I, after we connected, the research I've done is, and I know I stay in a lot of hotels.
Yeah.
It's really pertinent to me. But I like that, the 3 stars around here, I did a little survey of what those 3 stars, and they're actually very nice.
Right.
They're great hotels. The boutique is harder to define. It's not like a real standard definition. So I'm leaning into whether, like keep it standard definition and the star ratings.
Please make.
That's easier to understand.
Yeah, and it's a hard fine line because we want nice, but we also want to make it affordable for our community's friends and family to come in. So what we're really hearing is we want something that fits our economic community, but we also want something nice. But the biggest thing we're hearing is we want it to look nice. That's what we're hearing.
And
Yeah.
the numbers, actually, if you look at the 10, I did a survey on 10 3-star hotels in our
Yeah.
area. And right off season, you can get the rates down like as low as the low 100.
Yeah.
All the way up to maybe 220. So very reasonable prices. I can't do that in the winter, but for the rest of the year, if you got relatives or you got friends, and I think the other idea was, from what I heard on the town, on the planning commission, was many people are gonna be building their homes, so they'd like to have an opportunity to either live in a cabin or, the hotel. So, it serves a bunch of good purposes here.
And since we're on the hotel, Bob, to your question, what we envision is like at max a 3-story, say, facade. We want the hotel to step with the land. It is on a place where you build, let's say, a walkout basement. So there is some topography there. What we don't want to see is a 5-story hotel right in your face as you come around the corner. That's not what we're going with this land and how we planned it and designed it. So just so you know, kind of where we're coming from is that we're sensitive to the height and the massing also, so that it fits with the topography.
Yeah, I really like what you guys are proposing. I think this is a much better setup than previous developers have come forth with. Hey, this is probably a better question for Phil or Thomas. If we grant this MDA, my understanding is we're pretty much married to it. And if for some reason Jenny and Ryan's project didn't go through, let's say it got sold or it got interrupted and somebody else took it over, then a different developer might, as it's written, might serve the community. Would there be any language that could be inserted that would be, for all intents and purposes, a poison pill, whereby if the project didn't go as planned, it could revert back?
I'd let Polly address that, but typically these things are, the NDAs are tied to the plat and are recorded. And they don't go away just because the project sells. It would have to be a negotiated change. It doesn't mean it can't be changed in the future, but it would have to be negotiated and agreed upon change. But I'll let Polly address that because she's the pro here.
Yeah, that's a good summary of it. I mean, just because it changes hands, as long as they would still have the new owners, the subsequent owners would have to follow the same requirements that are laid out in the MDA. And I'm also looking into what's more concerning is that if, there's another pandemic, whatever we come up with, but if the project doesn't go through, we don't want the zoning, the zoning is so tied to this project and to enable them to do this commercial and to put the whole project together. And so I'm looking at some ways so that it would revert if for some reason the development agreement wasn't acted upon, even if it got passed. So I'm doing what I can to protect the town, to make sure that in that scenario, we would be protected.
And I'd like to say to you, it was Bob who asked that?
Yeah.
Okay, just so you know, Ryan and I are significant landowners with several lots and properties and plan to live in Hideout. And so if we get hit by buses or something happens to us, or we sell a portion off, we do have around a 60-page document that's with the MDA on design guidelines. So we have worked extremely detailed with several people on the planning commission, with Polly, with Thomas, on this exact fear. And we're very supportive of making sure everything's T's are crossed and I's are dotted on that.
I would say, as a resident, I'm speaking as a resident, that going back to single family, one house per acre is probably not what the town really wants. So it seems like, why would you want to go back to something you don't want? Then another developer is going to buy it, come with probably a lot more units than we have. Like, to me, it's like, hey, if we're happy with this, like, hey, we can manage that. Let's take actually the risk off the table of it going back to one house per acre, and then another developer coming in saying, hey, I want 600 units, just like I've seen before. So that's my 2 cents.
Developed point, Ryan, thanks. I mean, I think we could probably find language that gives us some flexibility.
Agreed.
Because if they want 600 units, it's not here, and they're not going to get it on 170 acres either. So.
And I think, MBAs, to Bob's point, are pretty bulletproof. I think Hideout's working under one that is
fairly constricting.
Fairly constricting, so they're pretty tied in.
Okay, so I know you kind of want to take us through this at a high level, as I said. And we'll get input on it at the end, but we haven't, full council hasn't read this yet.
Yeah.
Because it's just showing up, so we're gonna take some time. The planning commission, I'm sure, did a great job, because they usually do.
They did.
But there are other elements that they may not, because they're outside the purview of the planning commission, or the council may want to see talked about, so we'll go through it and get a sense, and I urge the council to maybe make notes as we're going through it, and then we can come back to the relevant sections that you have questions about, so we kind of get through at least a high level overview for it. Because it's, it's a lot of pages, and we're not gonna do it all tonight as far as the full final doc, so I'm trying to get through the high points of what each section is for and what it's trying to say, and make your notes, and then we can come back at the end and ask the questions that you have, and give some input, so that we can, the team working on it can have some more, data to work with. If that's okay with council, then Thomas, I don't know if you're running it or.
Sure.
I'll
Why don't I run through this page pretty quickly, and then I might ask that we go to the actual MDA where we've got a few things, about 5 or 6 things highlighted in yellow that we wanted to make sure that we conveyed to you, so that you guys can start digesting it and thinking about it. But I'll go through these pretty quickly here. The hotel is proposed to be constructed in phase 1. Planning Commission had a long discussion, input, back and forth with the applicants. The desire was to get the commercial in upfront as soon as possible. So there is commercial in the phase 1 portion of this project. There are 5 phases in the project. It roughly goes from fall of 24 to 2032, I think, right, Ryan and Jenny? I think 32. So that would be very early on. Some of the additional commercial after the hotel would be in the latter phases of the project, but some commercial and the hotel are part of phase 1. Water agreements were discussed. The proposal in the MDA, the language I should say in the MDA, notes that water rights would be secured prior to or at subdivision approval, and that has been incorporated into the MDA. There were some discussions with regard to flat roofs. Right now, our ordinance allows 30% of a structure's roof to be flat. So the majority of a structure, 70%, has to be pitched at 312 or greater. The applicants are looking to have as much as 30% of the roofs. So 30% of the rooftops, 30% of the structures could have flat roofs. And Brian and Jenny, tell me if I'm saying that incorrectly. So we had to allow for that language. The Planning Commission was comfortable with that, to allow some flat roof buildings in this development, provide that variation, allow for, as Bob noted, some rooftop amenities and decks, et cetera. And so that language is not exactly as our ordinance has it in the zoning section of the town code. So we would have to incorporate that in the MDA to allow for that.
Thomas, are the claim roofs? I mean, the claim roofs are relatively flat. I mean, they have a fairly low pitch.
They are, and actually that was part of their MDA agreement as well.
Okay.
Short-term rentals, we had discussed for quite some time, a short-term rental overlay ordinance. We've decided to pull that back because now we can incorporate them as an allowed use by way of the MDA pursuant to state statute earlier this year. And so there is short-term rental language in the MDA, and you'll note here that the applicable sections of the draft code that we had worked on have been incorporated into the MDA. You could see them here, minimum 2 consecutive days, no ADUs may have a nightly rental. Those have all been lifted from the draft ordinance and incorporated into this MDA. If you scroll down a little further, keep going, we've got road maintenance. This will be a discussion item. Initially, there was the thinking was that the HOA would take over maintenance of the roads up there. But now with the need for a public infrastructure district and the logic behind that, there will be some roads that I think a PID may require that they get dedicated to the town. I'm not exactly sure how that plays out, but we have to work through some of that language. And part of the proposal now is that the main roads, the spine roads, and they're noted in Exhibit G in the MDA if we want to go there later, would be turned over, dedicated to the town, so they would be the town's maintenance responsibility. The the roads in the area of the cabins would likely remain private. So some roads would come over to the town's maintenance responsibility. That issue, I think that Ryan and Jenny certainly shed more light on this if you want to. I know that we've discussed it internally with Tim Dixon, and there are some concerns about maintenance, et cetera. What is the cost? Is there additional
yeah, I feel like it's just going to come down to numbers, but we can have that conversation whenever we do tonight. I have the exhibit easy to pull up if we need to. But the idea we were thinking is the main route that goes to Golden Eagle would be public. Commercial, there's a route there that we would love public transit to go on. So where public transit goes, we feel would make logical sense for public. In our original application, we had the 12 townhomes gated and private, but we feel like they're not going to be gated. They potentially, they're just going to be normal residents feeling like Golden Eagle. So it would be great if they could just get treated the same. That was the logic on that. The cabin area could be a resort run area. So we feel like that could be private. That's the logic behind that. So that's sort of the logic behind it all, but we totally understand it's numbers. It's what does this bring in? How can we afford to not send our town broke? And how can we have a beautiful looking community?
And this final discussion is with regard to the potential need for a well on the site that might serve the town. And there was some discussion regarding this at the Planning Commission meeting. They took this out of the MDA, and so it's an item for discussion. As you guys read through the MDA, this may be an item that we want to discuss after you've read the details of the MDA.
I mean, we are doing geology work, hydrogeology work now to ascertain what options there are for the town. So I think this will probably come back based on what the hydrogeologists out there. There's a ton of test wells that have been done in the area that the hydrologist is studying. So that's an ongoing project right now, but we'll come back and talk about it. But it's possible that it may be there may be a tie-in point there somewhere that we may have to look at in the future. So we'll see.
And I just want to mention that the well isn't on this property, so it may be a moot point.
Right.
And then also to get lending to, it's going to be very hard to get lending on a property that will be appraised different if there's an easement that a town can just come anytime and put a well in front of houses, in front of anything. It'll be very hard to get lending with that requirement. So I just want to
that's
point
why
that out.
we're trying to understand where, if there were to be something up there, where would be a logical place to go. So you could try and incorporate that into thinking process.
Exactly.
Yeah. We're willing to talk about it. It's just was
it's fine.
sent in the MDA the morning of our meeting, and
we
no one,
don't know what
planning
area
commission,
we're-
nobody saw it. So.
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah. So we just love it to be talked about.
Okay, Thomas, next.
Why don't we go to the actual MDA? As I said, there's about 5 or 6 items that are highlighted in yellow. Some of these are minor name changes. You can scroll down past these.
Trying to make so it can be big enough to be seen while not taking out all the comments. So I'm kind of on the edge here, but
you're pretty close, and I'll walk through these fairly quickly. So as we discussed early on with the rezone, right now the rezone is being proposed as a rezone by way of ordinance, but there may be a way to incorporate the rezone as part of the MDA, so that if the MDA for some reason didn't move forward, that the land would then revert back to its existing zoning. So that is something that I think Polly and the applicant's attorney are looking into. So that is a to be discussed item down the road. You keep scrolling down. Let's see, go a few pages, keep going, go past the definitions. That's just a note that will be completed at a later date. And section 2.9 right there. There was discussion with regard to the short-term rentals, noting that if our ordinance if we have any changes to our governing ordinance for short-term rentals, which, you know, we do have a section in our code that addresses short-term rentals, that as it is amended, that the requirements would apply to the short-term rentals in the Bloom development. They wanted to note that as long as it did not outright disallow, and I think that Polly and their attorney Justin may clean this language up a little bit, but it was an item at the Planning Commission's meeting for discussion. Let's see. This next one was with regard, if you go down just a little more to 210, that is with regard to the roofs. We discussed that one up in the staff report. If you go down to 215, this is a potential monetary contribution placeholder. And if you remember early on with prior developments, there were discussions with regard to contributions to the community, amenities that would be provided, et cetera, as part of an MDA. There were discussions early on in the Planning Commission meetings that addressed possibly a tunnel under 248, contributions to that, maybe a bridge over, maybe some trails, connectivity, different kinds of amenities that were discussed. That's been taken out because the Planning Commission recommended that that be discussed with the town council, and that's really a policy recommendation. So that is up for discussion as you guys think about this over the next few weeks.
And I would like to say that is probably the most critical because it's starting the discussion, but we can't get the MDA voted on without it. So that we would love to be available for anything on that discussion. I'd also like to mention that we have significantly less density. We're trying to keep open space. We also are trying to bring commercial in phase one, and we would prefer to keep our money to incentivizing commercial. So giving them lease credits and see how we can really get that thriving. We would love to potentially do trade items like the amphitheater could be the town's and we could lease it back for events, or the top space could be for the town to host things and we could lease it back for events. The town could have some office space or something in one of the areas that would help us keep money to make the development thrive versus handcuffing us. So that would be our preference.
Understood. Makes sense to, you know, if we do anything, it needs to be done in a way that doesn't shoot the project in the foot. Right. Or drive the pit to the point where nobody wants to buy it again.
Well, and useful. I think, you know, when we started, it was money they wanted to earmark for an overpass. And as I looked into it, they're $14 million. And I feel the town maybe has other needs that we can walk across the road. For save 14 million and maybe spend it on other things.
So yeah, we're a team on this. We would love ideas, and that idea actually came up from Joel from the Planning Commission. Yeah.
On the overpass or the under?
Or on the land and
doing something
different.
Oh, yeah.
So that,
Why don't you guys come up with some proposals? I mean, you know, it's like, it may be easier if you've got some things.
Yeah, we would love to.
Yeah, I don't think, you know, I mean, we went through that underpass with the previous applicant. So I don't think it was going too far, but, you know, come up with some ideas.
We'd love to.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's what I'd suggest anyway.
This next one is an issue that I think Polly and Justin, their attorney, are going to walk through with regard to non-monetary damages, how claims shall ultimately be addressed. I think that's kind of a legal issue between Polly and Justin. The next one is Public Infrastructure District. You had your discussion earlier today discussing the need for a policy kind of sequencing timeline, how we look at PIDs, language that might be added to that. And so some of that language may carry over into the MDA. So this is a bit of a placeholder for that.
Are you pretty firm on the PID?
We think it would be beneficial, yeah. We really like the PID, and we have had several discussions. We're months in with that, and it's looking very positive, and they believe in us. So the biggest accelerator for this is for us to get infrastructure in it. So if we can have that funded and going in 6 months, that's an amazing positive for everyone in the community.
We also feel it takes some of the risk off the table for us and the town. You know, let's throw a number out like 10 million. As developers, we finance 10 million, we put on all the roads, the interest payments don't stop. We have, who knows what comes up in the economy or life, whereas a PID, you have a little bit more flexibility. And as far as the liability also, it's more spread out on the whole development rather than, you know, the traditional method, which is why they're becoming more and more popular.
Yeah, there's no, I mean, we're certainly, so given that, do you know, it's like, it'd be nice to see the PID here as well, because if that's what you're gonna go, you know, do you think it'd be, because I know you've been moving on that a bit,
yeah.
so.
The first step
tell
is
us
the
where we-
LOI.
Yeah.
And we have the LOI is being done, and Sam was on the call earlier, so we're doing the LOI with DA Davidson is the one that funds the PID. And he said that the LOI is based on the template that Randy Lawson has reviewed on behalf of several other jurisdictions that have created PIDs. So it's basically a template copy. And so we have just been waiting on infrastructure breakdown. So we just got that yesterday, and that's very detailed. It's like a 6-page document on every little thing you're gonna need for infrastructure. And so now we have that, we should be able to insert what's needed in the LOI, and we should get that to you guys in the next 7 days.
Yeah, it'd be nice to see all this.
Getting our price.
That would be great.
Because there's interdependencies here,
Right.
both financially and building wise.
And for us, it's interdependent to get, if we get this approved and then we have to wait another 6 months for the PID, that doesn't make sense. So
Yeah,
it makes
exactly.
sense for us
Yeah.
to do it in tandem.
Okay, cool. Yeah, and the other, you know, I guess the only quote unquote downside of a PID is if the tax increment that gets added to, you know, makes it difficult for you to get your properties sold on the market, right? True. Right, so we, you know, there needs to be some thought around that, so we don't get.
Yeah, and we're all a team on that, so I think the highest it can be is a 15 mil rate.
Well, that's for the state.
Right.
The town passed the 12.
Okay,
Yeah,
so
if I
somewhere
remember
like
correctly.
5 to 7, like we want people to buy houses,
Yeah,
right?
exactly, of course you do.
Exactly, so we're all gonna be, I think, incentivized on the same for that.
And I think we were thinking like this residential should be more in the 8 range. you
Right.
know?
And we're
So think about that.
So DA Davidson has run the numbers for us at a 5.
At a 5?
Yeah,
Okay,
so we're
okay.
trying to
That's
stay
pretty
conservative on it.
Well, and this is, you gotta keep in mind, this is a recreational community, it'll be nightly rentals, so, you know, for a lot of folks, it'll be an income generating property. And, you know, it won't just be a cost burden, they're gonna be running the books on it, in a sense, and then you have commercial as well, where, you know, these types of fees are more routine.
And I don't wanna say we've agreed to it, but 5 was like, let it worst case scenario, so that we can still get it done.
We have
So
numbers that
8,
we-
5 to 8 would be good, yeah.
We have numbers that
Yeah.
fits in the range that we. were-
But yeah, I think the essence is we agree, right?
Yeah, we haven't really looked at all the
Yeah.
numbers. Rob Zan's looked at, done the pro forma, so to speak, so, you know, I think they're, anyway, we'll
Yeah,
deal with
we'll
that
deal
later.
with
Keep going. Yeah.
Thomas, we're back to you.
All right,
Sorry.
section 4.4 there, that's really a Polly and Justin, an attorney issue to resolve, placeholder. This section of the MDA notes that if a building permit were not pulled within 36 months, 3 years, that it would basically nullify the MDA. There was some discussion with regard to, is this the right length? Is there a pause clause that needs to be added? Something, it's probably not for consideration right now, but just to think about down the road. Nobody wants for this situation to materialize, but if it did, how do we address it? If the project didn't.
And this is effectively the poison pill that one of the town council members asked about, and they're common in development agreements. But
And I think, you know, maybe we talked about the duration, we know Golden Eagle had to go however many months without pulling a permit, like things just happen, you've got municipalities. So we just want to make sure that we're all covered with this, whatever that number is, that we don't have to start over.
It's a good thing to think about.
Yeah.
We're working on language there. Good thing to think about.
Yeah.
And we want to make sure you have enough time to be successful, but we also don't want to, have landowners hanging for 8 years because you don't have the pipes in. And the recent experience that we have here on the lake, where we had a building on fire a few days ago on the opposite side of the lake. If that had happened, if we had allowed the building at Golden Eagle to go forth before we demanded the infrastructure to be in, that would have been a hillside fire.
Yeah.
That would have been a mess. So, there's a reason why we do this in protection of people,
Totally.
right? So,
Yeah.
it makes sense that, what we would, I guess it lends credence to the fact that we were working hard to do the right thing up there. And we're gonna keep trying to do that for here.
So we want infrastructure that works with the town.
Yeah.
That the town's happy with. That's our goal.
All right, Thomas, back to here.
Section 5.5 addresses water. I think that there was some language in here, specifically number 5.5, number 2, regarding JSSD that I think the applicants wanted to discuss with their attorney. And so this is really maybe a Polly and a Justin placeholder as well.
The essence was fine. It was just me asking a question because I hadn't had a chance to talk to Justin. So it's nothing huge.
Yeah, we went back and forth with the planning commission on this point. The key issue here is water is obviously a problem in Hideout, and making sure that there's adequate water. And the way that the trigger that we agreed to with the planning commission is that we'd have to show adequacy of water before recording a plat, which is kind of a step further back than you would usually be at the permitting stage. We said, okay, we'll do it at the recording of a plat, and we're just getting that language right.
Yeah, I mean, and we require will serves blessed by JSSD all the way through anyway, so.
Yeah.
As long as they say it's fair, then we're okay with it. All right. There's a lot of stuff here, Thomas, in this section.
So this section is an area where the well language that was noted at the tail end of the staff report could get reinserted, reconfigured, et cetera. That came out of this particular section. And the additional language here relates to the PID, again, that there could be additional language regarding exactly what the town is responsible for in terms of roadways versus which are private roadways and held accountable to the HOA. And then just noting, Tim Dixon, others need to really review this in detail. Those are just placeholder notes.
Okay.
The rest of these are very minor, just with regard to renaming for clarification purposes, some items, and I think that is it, actually. Those were the final discussion items that are still somewhat open, and the Planning Commission had, as they forwarded their favorable recommendation, they just noted that those were the issues that they recommended, certainly the town council look at closely and reach mutually agreeable language with the applicant. So those were areas specifically identified.
Thomas, it'd probably be useful to go over the phasing.
We could, okay, if you want to walk through that, let's go down to Exhibit C. And Jenny and Ryan, I'm gonna let you guys walk through this. Just kind of simply, I think we've got right below that map, Mayor, is a phasing schedule that's more general, and then there are tables that follow it that get more specific as we go. But Jenny and Ryan, you may want to outline this for them.
Yeah, I'm gonna pull it up on my computer so I can sort of explain it high level. So Mayor, feel free to stay with me, or I can take this over. So basically,
You can share if you want.
okay, let me share. Do.
it'd probably be useful for everyone to hear what is, how did you come up with this phasing?
Yep.
And why, how this makes sense, because we're in tough economic times. You may not, so how does this phasing fit into where we're all dealing in life right now, so to speak? Does that make sense?
You're gonna have to make that a little bigger.
And that's what I'm trying to work out, is that a little, let me see if I can, there we go. Can you guys see that?
Yeah,
Okay.
that's of a reasonable size, I think, at
Um,
least for the language down below.
okay, so, let me see, the best way is probably to go down to this
The
one.
phase timeline plan is a
Yeah.
good one,
Okay,
but then you gotta match that against the numbers, which is in the table above it.
yeah, so overall, there's several phases, I think. There is, how many do we have here? 6 phases. I'm just gonna talk it through as I read this. So, actually, I'm gonna show the map here. The first phase, it just goes in order of a logical build. So this is all very logical. It's timed off once ground starts getting dug, once infrastructure starts getting dug. And that timing would move every month the infrastructure is delayed. So everything is contingent on when you start, right? So right now it would be a start of right after winter, so spring. And that would be the main route through the middle. So it would be infrastructure. It would be the left-hand loop, commercial here, and the townhome loops up to the cul-de-sac here. And I do believe, so you see infrastructure, it's written here, infrastructure A, the main route loop, and the cul-de-sac, yep. And then we'd also be doing areas that are used, the amphitheater, the grass and the top park and everything like that too, in phase 1. So you sort of see the lower left-hand corner would be all done in phase 1, but the road going all the way through would also be included in that.
And the PID would also be in phases, so it's not a PID for the whole thing, we're gonna pave every single road. We would do that in phases that also coordinate with this.
And so the buildings in phase 1 is basically the commercials, half of the commercial in phase 1, but that would also be phased out to potentially 10,000 square feet and then another 8,000. And this is our projected normal timing. So if we found that we had a lot more tenants, of course, we'd build it quicker. So this is sort of the projected timing on a safe that we can promise and execute on. Then the hotel as well would be in that. So you have the infrastructure in, the roads in, you would have potentially half of the commercial up and vertical, fully built, and the hotel, and then 40 townhomes are also included in that to help that drive. So that's phase 1. I'll talk about timing after I go through the phases, I think would be easiest. Phase 2 is just the building phase. So the infrastructure actually of that single family road would be done. The whole left side of infrastructure would be done in phase 1. And then we'd start building in phase 2 the single family homes on the back side. Phase 3 is infrastructure of the right-hand side. So then that goes in. Phase 4 is buildings on the right-hand side. So 53 cabins in phase 4. Phase 5 is the 22 townhomes as you lead up to the cabins. The second commercial pad and the 8 multifamily. Now, strategically, there is about 5 acres to the right-hand side where these 22 townhomes go. So leaving these and the second commercial to phase 5 will allow us to evaluate if that is the ideal usage for that area. What if Hideout grows so much and the commercial is so thriving that we could use that 5 acres for something else? Right now, we have it as 22 townhomes because that's what works for us. But we're keeping that in a later phase so that there is some room for how this community grows and what we're going to need there as well. And then phase 6 is building the 22 townhomes on that as well. So then if you go down to timing, it's just on phases, building phases here. So if we can start in spring of 2024, we would hope to have the infrastructure done by Q1 2025. The amphitheater would also be sort of done in that whole infrastructure and the grass on the top park as well. The hotel, if we can secure a hotel, we need zoning to secure a hotel because they will not commit to a lot of money when the land isn't even zoned yet. So we're actively talking, but we can't get anyone to lean in until they're like, well, you actually can have a hotel on here. So That would be a fall because the infrastructure does take time to get the roads out to that point. So even though we're starting infrastructure, it's not like a road's there for them to bring their equipment. It's digging all of a lot of stuff. So fall of 2024, the hotel can start getting in their equipment and everything to be building, but they do build pretty quick. And they would be incentivized to do a 2025 winter opening, especially with Mayflower and like getting in on that excitement as well. So it actually is quite a quick turnaround for a hotel. But that is, we've run it past several, and that's what they're telling us is the logical timing. The landscape would be in the summer, the next summer, because we'd want to wait for infrastructure to get out of the way so we can start doing that. And then the commercial pads we have starting in 2024 fall. So similar timing to the hotel, and taking a year to build, which is pretty typical, but could be different several months either way. The second phase of commercial we have starting when the first phase opens, so ending in 2027 with that being opening up. And then the townhomes we just have here as 10 a year, starting in 2025 spring, and then being year-long builds. Phase 2 would be starting in 2025 spring, and that's doing 4 homes a year, with a little bit over a year for those homes to be built.
Those spec homes or those spec homes?
Yeah. And phase 3 is 2027 spring, and that's infrastructure, so that would all end at the same time. So the whole infrastructure here would be completed by 2027 fall. Phase 4 is the cabins, and we have doing 25 in phase A and 28 in B, so each sort of doing it as a year-long project. And the amenities timing with that as well. Phase 5 is townhomes. Oh, this is the final townhomes on the left-hand side. So they would start in 2029 spring and end at the end of the development. The final commercial then would also be in that phase, depending on demand and how it's needed, so that it would look beautiful, but we can then add it in that phase, depending on demand, that it would be ready. If demand was high, then we would come back and ask you guys to move that to an earlier phase. And then phase 6 is those 22 townhomes.
So there's a lot of little phases and sub phases in here. Give me your impression of what the key risk factors are from your standpoint. Like, you've got phase 1, you have half the commercial, yeah, the hotel coming in. If that doesn't, if that works, would you accelerate phase 5, which is the second half of the commercial, on the order of being conservative? What's your key risk factors here on the first couple of phases? What do you think?
Yeah, so ideally we want to get rid of development as quick as possible. Like, so we want to have a community, because the more you build, the more it makes noise and construction. So the quicker we can get to a fully built development, the better for us. It's hard to work out what pieces will come first, but we definitely want the commercial and the hotel to come first, with some density to support it. So the townhomes. If we got a resort cabin amazing partner that came in, could that start in tandem? Yes, that could, and we would love that. So we have this plan that if Ryan and I have to be the ones doing it all, this is how we would do it. If we bring in partners that are amazing, that want to take that portion on, and it's great for the community, then it could be accelerated to earlier as well.
Okay. The acceleration is not the issue. I mean,
It's the economy that's
we
the
hope
issue.
that acceleration is an opportunity.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
But you never know,
I mean,
look at, even this past 2 weeks in the market has brought some people in thinking differently, but point being is, you always gotta work conservatively. So just wondering, you got your risk factors in mind, because I think the more you share that with the
Yeah.
team here, so to speak,
So
the
what-
better off we are.
Yeah, I hope you're finding we want to be a team. We want to be transparent and authentic. We want to tell you the whys behind everything. So if something happens and there's a shortage of something and we can't start, that we educate on why, and we're a team on these things. Surprises are gonna happen. And so, that's what our essence is. This is what we want to do, but we also want to protect Hideout in the community, or want you to want to protect Hideout in the community. And so it's going to be an ongoing conversation as long as we keep you very up to date on everything. The risk to me is if something happens out of all of our control, like another COVID or just something that none of us can protect for right now, and we're not a team on that. That's the risk to me, but I don't feel like that's going to happen. I feel like from the start, I feel like we are local developers that are also residents here. We're going to be residents here. Whereas other developers that perform and line items, we were advised and told by other people, come in with really high density and it's a game and everything. We made the decision we didn't want to do that. And we just wanted to be authentic. And if it doesn't get through, then it's not right. So that's sort of what we've done from the start. So I feel like that mitigates risk if that's the relationship we have. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I think compared to what we've seen in the past, it's reduced density. You have some reasonable thought through the phasing. We're gonna have to work together with you guys, so to reduce risk on both parts. And that's, I don't know if you have a mental picture of what that looks like, because you're alluding to it, but if you could define that a little bit more. I think the power of the town, the power of what you're trying to create will have the opportunity to reduce risk if town hasn't done much of this.
Exactly.
It's not Park City where you've got a lot of history. So, it's gonna be working together with you guys, hand in hand.
Yeah, and I think a separate, like if we could do a special session on risks, that would be
And
amazing.
marketing,
Yeah.
I think that's a great idea. We
Yeah.
talked about doing that anyway as part of our process, so. I think one of the things that is helping to do this is your focus on the commercial area being targeted towards the neighborhoods around here to use it,
Yeah,
right? I mean, that means a lot, because that's likely gonna be your bread and butter company.
We all love River Horse on Main, but we're not eating there
No.
3 nights a week.
No,
Yeah.
not even 3 nights a year.
right, once every,
Yeah, you want busy restaurant.
But, if you look at who's going to Black Rock's restaurant, besides the people that are using the hotel facility portion, it's people from around here. Right? You're talking about going, 1 or 2 nights a week, and, almost everybody says, I don't feel like doing anything tonight. If there was a place across the street, I'd just go there.
yeah.
Right?
And
So-
we stand
It
on
may be
land.
better as well, so, that's a piece of the complaint, so
Yeah.
it works in your favor.
Right.
If we can, again, maybe find the right combination of things.
So I think your thoughts about how to do that, as well as thinking about the hotel being utilized not just by, the montage people, but, the folks who want to come are okay staying a little bit out of town because the costs are better.
Views are great, locations acceptable.
Yeah.
To the ski resorts. We, Hideout, we don't have much commercial, so it's always, is it gonna work?
Right.
That, and our reception from Katie, as she's been working on it, it's very, very well received, what we have going here. So I think are both very confident that phase 5 will probably be moved up quite a bit, and that only makes sense. I think the more that we create a
Well, hopefully.
community.
Well, again, once you start putting the townhomes in, and once we start the rentals with those, then people coming in will start using those facilities as well. And you're showing up, for a 3-night stay, a 4-night stay and you know, the place around the corner has bread and milk and whatever, got frozen pizzas, you're in, right?
So we want that. We also want to stagger the, you know, we want a coffee shop with great pastries, like a Beaumont Bakery in Salt Lake or something like that. We want a nice place for lunch and dinner, so it kind of, they work together. It doesn't all have to be the same restaurant, but just different options for us, so we're not going to the same place every day. And also, I don't personally, I do go to Black Rock probably every 2 weeks, but it's not comfortable walking into a hotel. So having something that's standalone, that's there, that's easy to get in and out and easy to park is something that I think will, you know, the residents will like that.
Katie's on the line here, is she, is she
Yeah, let's
not?
see. Katie-
Yeah, and you know, maybe just a suggestion.
Before.
Yeah, and maybe she could bring us a bit of a proposal of what elements would, between the town and what you're thinking of from a marketing standpoint, would be key elements to work together on, which would, you know, make
Help
this.
get the best people.
Yeah, you know, make this a success, so, I don't know how much time we have here.
Well,
Probably
we're
we're not.
no, I don't think tonight's the night for
Yeah,
that.
but maybe she can come back with
Totally.
kind of a few slides or a written kind of
And
thing.
again, we haven't, you know, the team hasn't even had a chance to read this stuff, we still have to get public input.
Exactly.
We're
That's good.
three,
Thank you.
3 hours in,
Let's do it.
so
I
let's,
didn't do
you know, yeah.
I haven't either, right?
You guys are talking about restaurants, you're making me hungry.
it. Right, our goals are aligned.
All right, so,
I'll stop sharing.
yeah, okay, that's great.
Okay.
So, I think, let me jump back to, I gotta share this, I guess, don't I? If I can get my Zoom to behave. Share screen.
And Mayor, to your point, I feel like you all, because the planning commission just recommended it last week, with
Yeah.
this being a very quick turnaround.
Yeah.
There hasn't been a chance for the town council to look at it, so we are not expecting anything tonight other than a first look, and we expect you to then all dig into it. And we would love maybe a working session on the 4 or so bullet points so that we can dig into it more as well.
That's great, Jenny, thank you. So Thomas, anything else you want to cover on this at the high level before we start to open for?
No, I
input?
think that's it. The only thing I was going to say is that if there were a couple of council people who really wanted to dig into this, we could form a subcommittee and kind of do what we did with the planning commission. We had Jonathan Gunn and Glynis, who kind of held a few meetings. We kind of dug into the details and then presented it back to the council. I'm happy to do that if you want to do that. And if that's not your desire, we'll also just work through it and then bring it back for the next council meeting.
Ralph's already in this fairly deeply.
And so is
So just because of the EDC.
Yeah,
so-
and everything that we're trying to accomplish and getting some money into the town, so to speak, and revenue for the town in a good way.
Yeah.
So, yeah, so I'm already signed up.
So
Thank you.
there's one, I'm heavily invested in this at this point as well, so. But I'm not a council member. So I'm only a figurehead, so. So if any of the other council members have the time and want to be involved in the additional reviews of the MDA before we bring it to you for the final, by all means, speak up.
So is there room for another one? I mean, Mayor, if you're involved and Ralph is there, is that our maximum, Polly?
To the maximum, not me has nothing to do with it. I don't count.
Yeah, I mean, obviously you can be involved kind of separately, but you can't have more than 2 council members at a time looking at it, passing it.
And I'm not a council member, Chris.
Oh, but I would not have the mayor plus 2 in the room at the same time. That would make me nervous.
That won't happen. That won't happen because I'm gonna get in the end and give you all the help you need. Try to see what you bring.
And Paul,
I'm
is
really
that
good.
okay if say Chris and Ralph wanted to form a subcommittee to do that? We needed
Sure.
2 meetings. Okay.
Yeah, if you guys need someone and yeah, I'd be happy to join Ralph. That is unless Carol or Sherry or Bob have, a great interest.
I have a tough time because of his travel, so this thing has to move, so. Anyway, all right. I think that we'll start with you two guys, first, please, and then we'll go from there.
Okay.
We all have opportunity to give input of what we think needs to be talked about in the MBA. I mean, I've already made notes tonight about areas and things that I'd be, so I'll be feeding you some of my thoughts. I've already given some to Polly, and some of those are already in here as well. I gave her some thoughts earlier on an earlier version, so. That's the best way to do it is, recommendation from council is to read through it, look at what's in there, think about the things that are going through your mind about this proposal and say, we really ought to have some language about X. And, even if we don't know what that language is, at least let's get that into the mix so we can start to think about it, that would be helpful for everybody. So that way, when we get back to here, we've at least attempted to address most of the concerns that are being raised by council. Even if we're not necessarily happy with all the language, at least they'll be talked about.
Yeah.
Right, so. All right, council, any additional questions for Jenny and Ryan? And I'm gonna open it up to public input. Okay, let's open up for public input. So one is, we're talking really primarily about the zoning for public input and, and anything comments you have with the MDA, recognizing that the MDA is not up for final approval at this point, but any comments you have about areas to consider, we certainly want to hear from you. So that's a raise hand project. I see the Blumenthal's are on tonight again, so let's let you jump in since your hand is up. Whoop, I didn't mean to do that. I was trying to get to unmute, but I'll do the unmute. That will keep you from, we're just working out logistics because normally Alicia and I aren't in the same room when this is going on, so this is new to us. But Don or whoever is up.
Yeah,
go ahead.
It's the hour is late, so I just have a quick comment and I can forward some suggestions to Chris and Ralph. But one thing that I haven't heard is any plans for accommodating electric vehicle charging. And I think this is a great opportunity, particularly at the hotel, to have a high-speed charger in the community. The nearest high-speed chargers down in Salt Lake and in Evanston. So just some thoughts.
As a Tesla driver, I second that thought.
It's great suggestion.
Yeah.
That's a good thought. Great
I
ad.
thought that was pretty standard these days. Good thought.
No, I mean, there's so much code that hasn't been figured out for EVs. I mean, you can't even put on the roadsides on the highway that there's an EV charger at this exit because the government doesn't allow that for the road sign yet. Because the gas station guys are lobbying. So, okay, other comments. That was a great ad. I've got some thoughts there as well. Maybe I can rent out my garage as an EV charging station. Look at the hands, not seeing them. So I think I'm going to close public input at this point. There. Polly, are we going to do either zoning? Are we still talking about doing it a different way? Should we hold off on that? Do you want to get a general sense from the council without doing the final so that you can have the flexibility of doing the language that you guys are working on? What do you want to do?
Yeah, I mean, no matter what, I wouldn't recommend amending, adopting the zoning until you have the MDA agreed to. They would happen, either it's going to happen through the MDA or more possibly, I don't know, it's kind of continuing to try to figure out how to protect us. But another scenario would be that, we do the zoning ordinance, but no matter what, they would go hand in hand. I wouldn't recommend the reason, unless you want to increase the density in that area. But I think from everything I've heard, that additional density and rezone is tied directly to the project and what is being proposed here as part of the MDA.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're right. I think I'm fine. I mean, Ryan brought up a good point, but I think, the zoning by itself can be dangerous without knowing what's going to be behind it. So I'm comfortable with your thought process, Polly, that says if somebody different comes in and we have to do something different, we look at it in different eyes, with different set of glasses. So that makes sense.
I would love to know though, so I'd hate to get through to the MDA and then you guys bring up at that vote, no on zoning, and then we have to go. So I would love to know the gauge on if anyone does have comments on anything they would love to see in zoning. The zoning is pretty much matching the concept plan. It should be very simple, but I just want to bring that up. If anyone now has anything that they'd like to tell us that we can work on in the next 30 days of that. I don't think there is, but I just wanted to bring it up.
And you're not coloring outside the lines with the zoning right now, so.
No,
you're staying,
Yes.
so it should fit in.
Yeah, I mean, and this all fits, Thomas, with like our road widths and stuff like that. We're not doing major mods to setbacks or anything like that, right?
Nope, all of the setbacks remain the same, road standards remain the same, sidewalks, trails, et cetera, all remains the same pursuant to the ordinance, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and to be clear, and any under state law now, any changes to our underlying code have to go through the planning commission, treated almost as if it's a zone change, a land use change, regulation change. And so it goes to the planning commission. They, made a recommendation to the council as kind of part of the MDA, and then the council adopts it. So any changes to our underlying code have been brought up and addressed in the MDA. So that's, it's impressive that there's really not that many changes to what's going to happen in our code under this MDA.
Thanks, Paul.
Okay.
I think,
So, Mayor, I just want to address, I think Jenny was asking a question because she just wants to hear from us that, no, there's nobody like horribly against this. It's going to derail it after everyone puts in so much hard work. So, I mean, I just want to say that this project is really improved over time. It's this land, using this land in this way, we've had multiple opportunities to look at people's proposals, and they're getting better and better. So Jenny, no, I think the way that you've zoned it does seem to tie in with what Thomas just presented with us with this draft MDA. And so I think we're just going to continue to proceed forward and see if we can get to an agreement.
Thanks, guys.
We've got to work both points. So I guess then, Polly, what we're doing is motion to continue to a date, so we don't have to go through the notification process again, or are we going to start the notification process? I don't know. You tell me.
I would think you would want to continue it to a date certain to help Alicia, and also to get so that the public knows when to expect this back.
So the next meeting schedule is December 14th. Is that a logical push point? To work with your schedule? I don't know.
Yeah, so we just want you all we would love to get the vote at that next meeting. If we need 2 meetings to get the vote and feel like, then it would be amazing to have another one in between. I feel like that gives us enough time to work with Chris and Ralph and get all your feedback and have you read it, that we could have a 80% chance of that meeting moving through. That would be the goal. So I feel like that works as long as we really want you to feel like you have reviewed and had enough time and everything too.
We have Thanksgiving over that period of time, so not to push you, but the other side of this is, get all the docs that need to be gotten together, which includes the structure of the PID. So we can look at everything as soon as possible within the totality of what you're trying to accomplish, you know? Otherwise, then you get, you know, it's like almost you're looking, like in anything here, you're looking at pieces of it. So the sooner you can do that and put that assemblage together, that would, I think, help us. And then that gives us a chance to look deeper into the questions on each side. I don't know if we'll be able to do it by the 14th, but shoot for it.
Let's shoot for that. And I feel like project managing, which I love, sort of setting expectations, if we can get you all of that early next week while you all review and have a week or something to get information to you and Chris, and then we meet. There seem to be only around 4 big points. Like this is when you read it, it's a simple read. There's nothing tricky. We're actually very standard. And then if we can have 1 or 2, 3 meetings in between that, or even back and forth, that I get that's a miracle goal, but let's aim for it.
I'll be doing a little traveling, but
yes,
I would say on the town protection clauses, they're really important. So if you can work that out with Polly, that's agreeable. I'd say that would be, you know, we're probably not going to do anything if that's not aligned.
Yeah, and
if you guys can work that out, that would be terrific.
We hadn't spoken to Justin, and now we have, and we're actually really fine with it. So I don't think there's going to be too many tweaks to that.
Yeah, the only reason that language hadn't been agreed to is we just got it the same day as the planning commission meeting, and we weren't able to connect because we both happened to be out of town.
And the planning commission did not look at the financials. You submitted them. So are there any changes to that, to pro forma?
No, there's no changes to that.
Okay, well, that's good. You know, I mean,
I think we have to look at that. I think our piece is not, we see what your road proposal is, at least what we think it is at a high level. We'll need to do a little math on that. So
the cost for taking over the road. And what that number is.
As
That's
well
not in the pro.
as well as.
My guess is that we're gonna
That's not.
make more money to the town than anything else in Hideout.
I don't disagree with that. They're saying that.
But I agree. I mean, we understand.
We have to set our expectations accordingly, because I got a budget, not just for this, I got a budget for the whole town, and I'm gaining. As Golden Eagle builds up, we're gaining a lot of road as well.
Yeah, and Thomas has been working very much behind the scenes on that. He's already prepped. We've got the map. He's gonna talk to Tim. So there's a lot in tandem that is happening as well.
So if you're gonna give us the cost of the road, when you come up with the numbers, just make sure that, I don't know if Thomas is best at this, but he's not a numbers guy, but our engineering team would probably be best at that. I feel a lot more comfortable if they looked at the numbers on the road and verified cross verification on that.
We will.
I think that's
So
right.
I know that's what you're talking about a month, so, can you get all those things?
Let's aim for it, get some food, and then see what we can do.
All right, so let's motion. Is this a motion, Molly? Is that the way we do this to continue? Yeah. Alicia says yeah.
To continue
So I
it
need
to
a
December.
motion to continue both of these items to a date certain being December 14th. And we want to make that motion?
So moved.
So who was that on the,
That was Chris.
is that Chris? Thank you. Ralph, you want to second that?
I'll second.
Okay. All right. Sherry?
Yes.
Okay to do that. Thank you. Bob?
He's on.
He's off? Okay, he had to go off. we'll do it without him. Then Ralph.
Yeah.
Carol,
Yes.
thank you. And Chris.
Yes.
Okay, motion passes. Thank you both.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Appreciate all the work you're doing for us and the way you're going about this. It's great to have the opportunity to work cooperatively. It's very nice.
Thank you. We appreciate it. So.
Okay, we're moving on to quick review of the committee updates, and then we can maybe get out of here by 10 o'clock.
Yay.
So let's, Gary, any news? We talked about what we're doing for Peace House, or what else you want to talk about?
No, that's about all we're doing at the moment until the new year. So just everybody bring some blankets to town hall. We'll just pile it up in
So
there.
Sherry, do you happen to know, I didn't want to interrupt their presentation. Do you happen to know why they only want cotton? Because, I mean, is it a fire risk or something? Because there's so many
I know,
fuzzy colored blankets that people have, and
I actually
know.
don't know why. That's just what they requested. I don't know if Jan's there, if she knows, because Jan was the one that kind of brought this to us. So it was great, but that's what they specified. I have no idea why.
Okay, even Minky Couture is not cotton, so.
You
I
can
know.
donate that.
Over my wife's dead body.
Yeah.
All right.
I don't know.
Thanks, Sherry.
But you know, it's easy to order. I ordered a 3-pack on Amazon and it was $38 for 3. I think Walmart probably has them as well. They're thermal cotton. So
Yeah, they're available. I mean, just some people, might want to be cleaning out their closets or whatever as well. As long as
I
they're
think they
gently
only
used,
want, I think they specified new.
No, they said gently used, I believe.
Oh, they did? Okay. I'm sorry. I missed that.
Pretty sure.
I should know, but I don't.
I think because I'm pretty sure they're gently used is one of the things.
Okay. I'm sure they wouldn't turn them down. So.
No. All right. Ralph, you had agreed tonight, you want to talk about some EDC stuff?
Not a lot. I think a lot of this is what we just listened to a large extent. So we're having weekly meetings. Katie, myself, JD, Cronin, and Jan are on the regular meetings. Thomas is usually on those meetings, probably joined as well, where we might be looking, reviewing things like PIDs, which we did on Monday. We'll re-review them, and we're going over, we've met separately, basically every Monday, and then we've also had some side meetings where we went down to Mill Creek and looked at, that project there and how that might impact us. So that's really the update, all the stuff we're doing there.
Okay. Okay. Thomas, then you want to go? I mean, I think we just saw a lot of the work that the planning commission's been doing, but.
Yeah, I don't really have an update. You've seen the work that they did in preparing the recommendation for this project. The only other couple of items that we may have coming up on the next meeting are to hear the brew pub proposal that is up near the Claim project. It came as a concept a few months back. They've reached out and it looks like they may be ready to come back and present. That may happen as early as December. We'll see. Other than that, we'll get ready over the course of winter to do some minor code updates, fixes, tweaks, etc., that we've been kind of working on and making note of over the course of the past year and a half with regard to the use of the new code. So other than that, that's really all we have coming up.
Okay, and you've also got the DRC on here, so.
And we haven't had new reviews over the past 4 weeks, so nothing there.
Okay. Thank you, Thomas. Chris?
The post committee met actually just before this meeting, and our focus was actually on drainage, natural springs, as a result of some of the challenges going on in the state park because of the way the flooding that's happening, that you may or may not be aware of. So, we got Tim to join us today, and we had a good discussion about some remediation that's going to have to be worked out between the state park and then the two developers over on the other side of the fence that are in Hideout. So really focused on that today. Jan wasn't able to join us, but we had, she had given us an update about discussions she's been having with the state park manager about the potential of a local pass arrangement that has not really gotten traction still at this point. So we'll continue to work on that. And then the committee decided that, we would meet one more time on December 5th. That would be our last meeting for the year. And then we might be bringing some things forward for strategic planning when we do our retreat in January.
Okay. Thank you, Chris. And Carol, transportation update, anything new from last month?
Nope, there's
You wanna
nothing
share?
really. Oh, am I muted? No,
No, you're on.
Right.
You're on. We can hear you.
Right, nothing really new, but I am following it. There has been some talk that I listen to the radio every morning, and I get information about transportation. There's talk, it doesn't really affect Hideout so much, but Governor Cox's his proposal to try to bring some transportation up through either Parleys or even a train. They're still talking about that, but that would go into Park City. It wouldn't really affect us, but if you wanted to get down to Salt Lake, but that's way down the road. And I will give updates. I'm sure that there'll be more information and timing and things as the ski resorts get ready to open. So hopefully I'll have a pretty detailed report in December as to how the buses are going to run from Richardson Flat.
Perfect. Thank you, Carol. We don't have any need, that I know of, to go to executive. You don't see anything, Polly, do you?
Sorry, wasn't fast enough. No, I don't have anything.
Yeah, we don't have any written movement on any of the things that we would normally go into executive for, so. All right. Before I ask for the adjournment, I want to remind everybody that we did commit to December 5th at 6 p.m. So put that on your calendars, even though you're going to get an invite shortly, but just don't forget. Because we need to have at least 3 council members with us to certify. Please let us know if there's a problem, if we have to change the time to accommodate you, we can do that potentially. So let's try and make the committed time work. With that, I'm open to a motion to adjourn. So moved. Anyone want to second that?
I'll second. This is Carol.
Thank you. Okay. Chris?
Yes.
Sherry?
Yes.
Carol?
Yes.
And Ralph? Yeah. All right. And the meeting is closed, and we'll say good night.
Good
Thanks,
night.
everyone. Have a great, safe Thanksgiving. Enjoy it. Take time to appreciate what you have, because it's a crazy, wild world out there. And the fact that we're all vertical is something to be happy about. So that's pray for snow, maybe. Pray for snow. Governor Cox had us working on rain earlier in the season. We can work on snow.
Right. Okay.
And
Night.
thanks, everybody.
Night.
Appreciate
Thank
it.
you.
Night all.
Yeah.